just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar, week 2 of the finals. Oh, mate, how good is it? I mean, it's good. It's bittersweet. There's only 3 games left, as the great Gurino just mentioned. But before we get to that, Dirty Merger podcast. That is right. Wednesday's podcast shirts, they are dropping next Monday, 6 p.m. And you do not want to miss this shirt, guys, because we have put plenty of time into it. It's an incredible design. The boys have seen it. They love it. Next Monday, 6 p.m, the Dirty Merger podcast shirts are dropping. You don't want to miss it. It comes around maybe once a year. So if you miss this window, you may never get this, most likely. We won't do this shirt design again. Actually, we definitely won't do this shirt design again. So you'll have to wait a whole nother year. So next Monday, 6 p.m, Dirty Merger podcast shirts with Hello Sport are dropping. 6 p.m, so set your alarms. We're also brought to you by the great Budgie Smuggler. And Budgie Smuggler, they are on the hunt for Australia's most ordinary rig. Entries close October 5th, and the top 10 will be flown to Sydney to partake in a pageant hosted by Hello Sport. $10,000 is up for grabs, half for you and half for your chosen sports club or charity. You'll also get a billboard in your hometown. That is right, a billboard in your hometown. Budgie Smuggler, make sure if you've got mates, if you've got a WhatsApp chat group or whatever, make it a fun thing. Enter together. Whether you've got a great rig, big rig, small rig, whatever it is, it doesn't matter as long as you're healthy and happy, and Budgie Smuggler is trying to promote that. Plus, you go to budgiesmuggler.com.au. It's getting warmer, baby. It was a bit of a warm weekend, so it's time to get the summer kit ready, boys and girls. I've also got some girl stuff as well. So budgiesmuggler.com.au. Support Budgie because they support us in the bloke community. budgiesmuggler.com.au. Go to budgiesmuggler.com.au, and also that's where you can enter the Australia's most ordinary rig for a chance to win $10,000. And if you're in the top 10, you get flown to Sydney. So entries close October 5th. Also, huge news. Grand final show at the Locker Room Hotel outside of a core stadium. That is right. Next week, so not this weekend, the grand final, whoever it is, we will be doing a live show. The great Gurino, Timmy, we'll be doing a live show outside of a core stadium at the Locker Room Hotel. Hello Sport will also be there. It is a celebration of a massive year, guys. It's also a way to say thank you to you guys for the ongoing support. So the Locker Room Hotel outside of a core stadium, we're doing a live show. You do not want to miss this. The end of the year, it's a great celebration. Even if your team's not playing, come on down and celebrate the year with us. But I have the great Gurino here with me. Guru, how you going, mate?
Going well, mate. I was just thinking about that grand final show. Imagine if we've got a Western Sydney GF.
Holy heckers. How good.
Wild.
I mean, look, I'm happy, to be honest, I'm happy if any team makes it because I'm a fan of all teams and I think they all play quite differently. But I tell you what, though, there is a part of me that says Eels Penrith is probably going to be the biggest final we've had in a very long time.
Yeah, Battle of the West, I think it would be the biggest in a long time.
Because, the numbers-wise, I know Sydney Roosters and Rabbitohs would be big, but numbers-wise, I don't think their fan bases are as big as Penrith Panthers and the Eels. The great Timmy here, he's returned. It's a bad week to return. You could have returned last week and claimed glory.
Boys, I can't believe it. Obviously a lot of Supercoach content that I do goes to sleep at the end of the regular season. Supercoach players would know. So I booked a little holiday long before I was on the Bloke podcast and thought I'd put the feet up for a week, get a bit of sun. Got the Raiders Budgie Smugglers out all week up north.
Yep.
And I missed out on a famous final victory over the Storm, and I returned to an absolute demolition by a Tom Opicic-led Parramatta Eels. And I just, mate, I also had a bit of an idea, hearing about all that in the Budgies promotion. I think I might dig up an old photo of Guru, send it in. We'll go 5K to the Cooma Stallions, 5K to you, mate. We'll get your mug up on the billboard leading into Cooma. Mate, I've got a bit of kick in my step.
Mate,
it's the average rig, not the awful.
Also, guys, this isn't a paid ad or anything, but I'm just really a big fan of this initiative. So the ABF Future Immortals Tour will be touring events focusing on supporting the grassroots community of rugby league, with former rugby league greats taking part in a series of engagement to enhance the profile and growth of rugby league from a community level, whilst raising much needed funds to give back and support the local community. Wally Lewis, Mal Meninga, are coming together as patrons to help former NRL stars to give back to our regional and remote communities. The first event is in Kawanyama. Now, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. Kawanyama, between the 13th and 16th of October. That's right. In Kawanyama, in the 13th and 16th of October, there'll be former NRL legends going to the local community, playing a game of footy, and just trying to give back to that local community. And the second event is in Roma in March of 2023. So that's the ABF Future Immortals Tour, where you'll see a bunch of ex-rugby league legends playing rugby league and giving back to the local community. And it's backed by guys like Wally Lewis, Mal Meninga. So make sure to head out, Google the ABF Future Immortals Tour, and you can get all the information that you need. Now, the biggest news from the week, well, I thought it was the biggest news, Brad Arthur's comments after the victory. So basically there was a leaked report essentially saying that there was, look, it's really interesting because the headline was nepotism. And so as soon as you see that, you go, hang on a sec, nepotism, sun in the side, rah-rah. But if you actually go into the article, it says that the report didn't find nepotism with Brad Arthur and his son. It was in regards to nepotism of, people getting jobs, that new people and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so after the match, after their win, Brad Arthur said, if someone has got an agenda, you're not going to break us. It's something that we can't control and it's rubbish. So basically, I wanted to talk about, the Eels situation. I think, me personally, even going into the Eels game, I was sitting there reading the news going, wow, someone has an axe to grind with the Eels, because it seems really strange that this week is the week all of this stuff is coming out. I think Brad might have a bit of a point. What do you reckon, boys?
I agree. I think Parramatta, the week of a sudden death game, they're an easy target, aren't they?
Easy.
I back Brad Arthur coming out with a strong stance like this. I watched his press conference and I back him 100%. Good on him.
Yeah, I think it's good that he addressed it and called it for what it was, because there's a big difference between saying there's pressure on Brad if they don't go through, and it's almost, it was coordinated. Because again, I'll take that back. It seemed like it was coordinated. It seemed like someone was sitting on some stuff and they were waiting until the second week of finals to try to create tension in the Eels.
And it happens every year.
Yeah.
So there's every year, it's not always Parramatta, but there's always little stories.
The Storm get it. The Storm literally get it every single year.
Yeah. Yeah, mate. Hey, Matty, you can talk more about it. The week the Roosters play the Bunnies, there's always something that comes up that week, every single year.
Well, think about it. The whole Joseph Suaalii thing, this has gone against the Roosters. The South person came out and tried to ruffle a few feathers there with Tedesco. Happens weekly, especially this time of year.
Timmy, what do you reckon?
Yeah, a load of rot, and you touch on it. It happens every single year come finals and these big games. There are things leaked to the media that become a big story, and with you boys, I'm glad Arthur came out and addressed it. We've spoken about this all through the year about Jake Arthur getting starts in the halves at times, and we've sort of said, you know what, Moses or Brown go down, he's the next man in line and he needs game time under the belt, and I don't think any of us have stood back on that move. So I do personally think he's the next player in line ahead of anyone else in that squad. So just, it happens every year, and it's quite annoying, but it's all part of the entertainment of rugby league.
Mate, it is all part of it. Yeah, with the Arthur situation in regards to his son, in the season, I could totally understand him being on the bench. In the finals footy, I think it surprises me a little bit because it's like you're carrying a specific 7 on the bench. But I've had to say, like, in 2 games where they've needed to take Mitch Moses off the field, they've had Jacob Arthur there. But we'll get to the details of the Eels' victory. It's interesting, like, in regards to the Eels, do you think that he needed to win this game to keep his job?
Oh, it's tough. I don't know. If they didn't win this game, have they not just done what they've done the last few years? I don't know if it would have been sackable, personally, but it definitely hasn't hurt the cause. I don't know. I constantly look at Parramatta, and I'm the first one to say that I think they should be doing better than what they have over the last few years. But I'll also be the first one to say, who are you going to find that's better than Brad Arthur?
That's the key, I think.
Yeah.
The key is like, who's out there that's better?
Yeah. And there's not many out there. So, you look at where we've spoken about a lot, from where Brad Arthur's taken them to where they are now. They might not be winning comps, but they're, a top 4 team last 2 or 3 years on the trot, which I think people underappreciate how hard it is to be one of those sides because we always want Parramatta to take that next step. So, if you're going to sack a coach, you got to have someone better to replace them, and unless you're getting a Robbo, a Bellamy, a Wayne, I don't think you're going to find much better than Brad.
What do you reckon, Timmy?
Yeah, look, I don't think he would have been sacked if they lost this game, and it would have been, speaking without any bias and that in terms of the result, yes, it's their first prelim since 2009, I think, and they've had a lot of solid seasons without going to the next level. I think we can underestimate how freaking hard it is to win an NRL grand final. And I know he hasn't got to the prelim, so it's a bit different than making a grand final or winning a grand final, but there's been consistency in terms of making finals every year, being in and around that top 4 every year. They snuck into the top 4 this year, so had they have lost to the Raiders and been knocked out, we'd be sitting here on another season, another disappointing end come the business end of the year. But at the same time, I don't think he's done a bad job or a job to have warranted getting flipped. And one good result, and we're going, they're a win away from grand final, so no way would I have been sacking him.
I will say, though, if they had have lost, and this is no disrespect to the Raiders at all, but if they had have lost to the Raiders with that team, that's really, really concerning for me. Because, when you look at the two teams on paper, I know there were some people that were trying to say on paper they were relatively the same. I strongly disagree with that. Strongly disagree. That's the only concern I had is look, the other years they beat Newey, then they went out to Penrith. And I think the year before they got bounced by Storm. When you look at the people they got bounced out by, it's like Storm, Roosters, Penrith. I think the biggest concern going into this week was getting bounced out by Raiders with the team that you have. It's at its peak. It's at its zenith. It's not getting better. That's where you start going, hang on a sec. Do we have the right people in senior positions to get the job done? I will say, though, I agree with you guys. Who's going to replace? Who would have replaced him? Now, the good thing is he got the win and he got it convincingly. He actually did exactly what he should do, which was put the sword to a team that, on paper, although it has some incredible players, Starp and Papali'i won, for sure, no denying that. But across the board, it's not as strong as the Eels.
So 2017 was Cowboys. They made the grand final. 2018, they got the spoon. Then it was 2019 was South. Then it was Storm. Then it was Penrith.
Penrith by 2.
By 2 points.
Who won the comp.
And so he's in a prelim now. So I actually think that the way, because you have to remember, he got the second shot by what? By beating the Melbourne Storm in the last round. And so this it's not like that he's just fallen into this place where it was a soft top 8, they were sitting 4th, he happened to get that second shot. They fought for that spot and they got it at the end of the year. So I actually think that, I would say, regardless of how they go, if they get absolutely pumped, that's a different story. But if they just go down to the Cowboys, I think it's a satisfactory year for the Eels.
I think as well, as I said before, I think if he would have lost last weekend, I don't think he would have got sacked. But I personally think they're going to struggle a little bit next year with Reid leaving and IPAP leaving. So I think that if they would have gone out in straight sets and lost to the Raiders, it would have compounded into next year. And then I think he could have really found himself in some trouble next year.
I think if he lost to the Raiders, I agree, wouldn't have got sacked. And I don't think he should get sacked. But I also think the Eels would have started preparing to say, mate, this guy's got 10 rounds and we're going to put some people around him. And they would have started going into the market, I think. We'll get to it later on in regards to the year and was it a satisfactory year. But I just wanted to talk about, I appreciate that Brad Arthur came out and said it. Because I think sometimes, look, you don't want coaches whinging in the media because then people don't like that. But at the same time, I think it's good as a footy fan just for the clarity of what he thinks. He thinks there's an agenda and it's not going to break him. I liked it. I really did.
We're getting a Western Sydney grand final, boys.
You reckon?
Yeah.
You're locking it in?
Yeah.
The Cowboys, the Queenslanders up north.
Cowboys are set semi-firm favourites for it. I can Para win it. I reckon they are electric at the moment.
Yeah, okay.
I reckon they'll towel them up, and I think Penrith are on another level.
Wow.
Sorry,
Timmy. Timmy's coming hot today.
I reckon we're getting the Western
What happened on this holiday, mate? You've come back fucking shoulders back, 10 foot tall.
The Raiders are out, so I can just focus on other footy and everyone else.
So, yeah, look, I like what Brad Arthur said, and at the very least, satisfactory year. And I think that like people should give the Eels a bit of credit. Like they're in a prelim. They're in the first prelim since 2009. Now, on to the other biggest news of the week. The Brizzy Broncos. Holy heckers. Holy heckers. Assistant coach has been let go, Terry Madison. Steve Walters has quit as a football manager. Now, there was a report, there's a rift between Walters and Eichen. Eichen was reportedly frozen out of key football department decisions at times. And this is Walters' comments on it. He said to the newspaper, I think it's Courier Mail. Yep, Courier Mail. He said, Ben is the new to the club. He came in at the back end of last year and we are working well together. Can things be better with him? Yes, everything in the club can be better. I need to be better myself and Ben needs to be better. I don't have a major issue with him. That's very strange wording. I don't have a major issue. I might have a minor one. I'm very clear on what needs to happen and I'm very clear on wanting to take the club forward. Oh, no. Oh, no. This is really concerning for me. Guru?
I don't have a major issue with him. That's one of the great red flags of all time, right?
Oh, look, unless he just accidentally misspoke, but it doesn't read well.
But there's no way he walked into this without thinking about how he was going to word this, and that's what he came up with. That's...
Look, I agree with you, Guru. I'm just trying to fucking ease the pain. I'm just trying to ease the pain, bro.
If someone said, I don't have a major issue with you.
Okay, so what's the medium and minor ones that you have?
Yeah, it's a worry. Crazy with Brisbane, like, as a whole, when you look at where they started to where they finished, such a good effort this year. And in periods, it was so fucking good. And now we're at the end of the season, and is it worse than what it was at the start of the year? At least the start of the year had a heap of hope of guys arriving and whatnot. Capewell, Reynolds. It's as soon as the old boys start to talk, it's trouble.
Yeah.
Up there.
Timmy, what do you reckon, bro?
Yeah, honestly, I can't believe it's reignited to this extent. And it just shows that midway, even towards the back end of the season, we were speaking so positively about the Broncos and what Kevy Walters had done to turn them around in such a short space of time. But it just shows that winning footy games can paper over some serious cultural issues because we've seen even missing the eight aside, ninth was a good finish. We've sort of said that a couple of weeks ago and reflected on that. But as I said, it's papered over some big issues going on at this club that evidently now have not been solved at all.
For Steve Walters to leave, his brother's the head coach. Like it's not good signs.
Yeah, look, I'm extremely concerned. That's look, there's one thing, not only have we heard there's player unrest, now there is unrest in the admin ranks. You know what I mean? So, you could argue, outside of maybe the board and the CEO and that, there is unrest in every part of this club, which is so unlike the Broncos. When I came through, what the Broncos did so well was you didn't know what was happening up in the board and admin room. You didn't, and it's a different time for sure. And also we were winning. So it's of course that's the case. If you're winning, it solves everything. This is really, really concerning that obviously Kevy Walters is essentially one of the biggest club legends there is. And then you got Benny Eichen as well. That two former old boys aren't on the same page. That's the one thing where with the Broncos, usually the old boys are all together and they're all moving in the same direction. I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned that what is happening where the environment is so tough that they are not getting along. You know what I mean? What is happening there?
Well, and just to take it another deeper layer, Walters and Eichen, they won a comp together as halves.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Old boys, they should be getting
not only are they old boys, they were fucking halves in a premiership winning side.
So they've clearly got different visions of what the right calls are. Because that's the only tension that I can see would have to be, Eichen feels a certain way about decisions, Walters feels a certain way about decisions, and they're not coming together.
There was a interesting part of the article that said that Eichen was apparently frozen out of major discussions. So, yeah.
Which is strange because Donaghy, who ran the Storm for all this time, so he's a good, one of the best CEOs, he brought Eichen to the club. So it's if the CEO has brought you to the club, you are clearly on the right side of the power dynamic at the club. So how is it that the coach is not on board? It's really, really concerning. Really
the more
concerning.
you think about it, the more concerning it
Yeah,
is.
that's what I'm saying. Like, it is really, really concerning that at the highest levels, there seems to be two different directions that want to be taken. It seems. Now, Gordon Tallis has come out and... So we've already spoken about in regards to Gordon comments in regards to allegedly some players were upset with the spray that Kevy gave him, but also, I think you got the wrong quote here, bro. So anyway, Gordon Tallis, basically, long story short, in regards to this article, came out and said, football managers are almost like a made-up they're like a made-up thing. And he said, really, the only person that can do that kind of role is Gus Gould. If you get that quote from me, I'm pretty sure I literally sent it to you. Anyway, so in regards to Gordon Tallis' comments, it kind of, I guess, seems like he's saying that, Ben Ikin maybe shouldn't have as much sway because it's a bit of a made-up role. Again, that's what it seemed like reading the quote. Maybe he didn't mean that. I would have to, and I love Gordy, I'd have to respectfully disagree with that. The good thing about football managers is that, and it's actually in all structures of power, like of today, like for example, a government. There's an argument to be made where like having a government in for 2 to 4 years is actually a negative because they're only making short-term decisions for 2 to 4 years because they're trying to get re-elected. So there's an argument to be said that we should put people in for longer so they're making long-term decisions for the right long-term benefit of whoever they're governing. The argument against that is like if you put in someone that's bad, he's in there for 10 or she's in there for 10 years and they make terrible decisions. And in regards to coaches, the reason why you want to put a football manager in is that if the football manager's job is more secure, he can make decisions that are based on long-term thinking. Whereas if a coach is making decisions, he has the added pressure of trying to get re-signed as a coach. And that's where I feel like football managers are a good thing because they put in things in place without having to be worried about being let go or re-signing over the next year. What do you got there, Matty?
So here's the quote. All these guys, what are they called? Football managers or directors of football? It's a made-up title. It's absolutely made up. Basically, the football manager should be a lackey for the head coach unless you are Phil Gould.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think also with Gordy, for me, I take it in consideration. Obviously, Benny Ikin's a Wayne Bennett guy as well, so there is a bit of history and whatnot.
I thought Benny Ikin and Wayne had an issue.
It's his son-in-law, isn't he?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they still...
Yeah, they had an issue about some comments a few years ago on 360.
Okay.
I don't know if it was like...
The law is
treacle,
deep,
but
it's long, it's almost the House of the Dragon kind of stuff.
It's deep. Yeah, there's a lot in it. I'm not completely on board with Gordy. I love Tallis. I've got all the respect in the world for him, but I don't know. It just feels like he's always the first one to talk whenever there's something negative to be said about Brisbane. I don't know. It's a tough situation, but I don't know if over the last few years, whenever Tallis has come out and said anything, it's actually helped the Broncos situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because that's his job to make comment,
Yep.
And he's a passionate, I think he does want what's right for the club. And there are some stuff I really do agree with when he's, it's just, I think this specific one, I just think, what do you think, Timmy?
Yeah, I love Big Gordy. I think most of us do, but I think he's dribbling there a little bit. No, I think you summed it up really well, Kempy. In regards to that, football director role, whatever you call it, general manager of football, it's just so hard for a coach, anyone on the coaching staff, players, anyone to think long term about the club. They're thinking about they're thinking about what's best for them right now, their family, their lives, and their short term decisions. And fair enough, coaches come in and out every 2 years at clubs. They need to worry about the now. But you need someone not necessarily over the top of that, but to have that vision for the future of the club, because that is far more important than what is going on in the immediacy of the club. So, mate, I think the way you put it summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, it's put it this way: if you're a coach and you've got a 28-year-old fucking gun and you want to win a comp in the next year, and then you've got another 21-year-old, and Rabbitohs are a perfect example, actually. Matter of fact, Rabbitohs are a perfect example. I think, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I got to eat massive humble pie. I thought the Adam Reynolds decision was the wrong decision. I thought moving that guy on, I thought Ilias could spend another year in reserve grade. Moving him on was a poor decision. But someone, above the coach, because Wayne came out and said he would have kept Adam Reynolds, made the choice that, no, we are going to back youth because we're thinking of long term. We need a young 7 in our side because we want to win comps, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead. Obviously, Adam Reynolds is at the back end of his career. And there's a really good example of a person above the coach making a choice for the long-term benefit of the club. So first of all, I want to say I was wrong. And second of all, I want to say whoever made that decision, fucking good on you. What an incredible decision. But I just want to relate that to the Broncos situation. And don't get me wrong, it's a win-win because Reynolds to the Broncos is a great buy. But if you're a coach and you can sign a guy that's in his prime right now for a lot of money, and you've got another year to go on your contract, you're going to sign the guys that are ready right now to potentially win. Whereas what if there's a younger guy that he's not fully developed yet, but he is the next Cleary or something, and you miss out on that? I mean, look, Reece Walsh, Sam Walker, all of these players that the Broncos let slip through their hands, maybe with better foresight, we could have potentially kept them. And look, every club loses really good players. It's not unique to the Broncos. So, look, I agree with Gordy in regards to, look, if there is someone upset because they got sprayed, you're kidding. That is absolute insanity. But yeah, love Gordy, just respectfully disagree in regards to this. I think football managers are needed.
You imagine just when you were talking then, imagine if you'd never signed Reynolds. You're in trouble now, but imagine if he wasn't there this year, how much worse it would be.
Holy heckers.
I was thinking the other day, imagine how different the storylines would be if Reynolds landed in Newcastle, for example.
Well, he could have landed in Cowboys.
Cowboys, yep.
The Peyton said no because he didn't want to wait. He wanted to get it done.
But to me, I look around the combat teams that really needed a 7. It was Cowboys, Brisbane, Newcastle. If Brisbane were the team that missed out instead of Newcastle, it'd be carnage up there.
It really would be. It really, really would be. So, look, really concerning times at the Broncos, and I think that it's just more evidence that the crazy drop-off in form was for a reason. There's problems at that club. There's problems at that club that need sorting ASAP. Sad times, but hopefully the boys can turn around. I'll back them all day. Don't worry, boys. I'll back yous all day. Just tough times. We'll pull through. Light at the end of the tunnel. All that kind of shit.
Well, as we head into next season, where do you see the Broncos? Is it just too early to...
We might disband as a club, seriously. Honestly, the great Guarino, I can't tell you because this needs to get sorted first. If this isn't sorted, I can see us fucking coming 14th or 15th.
I got a question. How do you feel this time, right now, compared to this time last year? This time last year you had Reynolds and Cable on the way?
Right now, I feel fucking scared for the club because this is not small drama. This is big drama. If this gets sorted, I'm I'm confident that we'll fight for the 8. I don't know if we'll top 4, but I think we'll fight for the 8. It's just a matter of if this gets sorted or not.
There's got to be more heads to roll, though, surely. Whether it's coaches, players, this can't be the end of it, I don't think.
I don't know. I think it'll be more a case of the people in power saying, Kevy, you've got X amount of weeks. That's what I reckon will basically be the go-to.
Jeez, if you were to sack Kev or give him X amount of weeks, who do you possibly bring in after Kevin Walters? This was always the punt with bringing him on, is that he's one of your greatest. It's not Lockyer or Tallis, it's probably Kev Walters, and you could argue he is the biggest.
Yeah, for sure. He's got the most premierships.
I don't know who you turn to after this.
Yeah, I know.
And if I'm a coach looking for a job and I get a call from Brisbane, I'm going, fuck, if Kevin Walters wasn't the guy, what chance do I have?
Well, that's the thing is I think everyone thought if there's one thing Kevy brings, it's not the coaching now, so whatever. As in, he probably can coach, but it's stability. That was the fucking selling point. It was stability between the old boys and everyone was happy. We're all on board. And And I'm not saying Kevy's the reason for this instability. Maybe it's Benny. I fucking don't know. Like, maybe it's someone else. Well, who knows who it is? I'm just saying, like, the club is now unstable.
And if they do let Kev go, like, the old boys of the 2000s, which are the ones that, the 90s and 2000s, like, I don't know if that bridge will be able to be mended.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really, really tough. Look, the thing is like, the really good thing is, as long as there's no injuries, is next year will be basically like, unless we make finals, because we've shown that we can do it, then next year we've got a good gauge of like, there's no, we came 10th, so it's all good. It's like, no, we've got the team to make the 8. We've proven that. And so if we don't make the 8, then obviously, I don't know if we don't make the 8, but like if we don't have a solid year, then obviously changes need to be made, because then there's, we're just treading water pretty much.
It is crazy, and I agree with you, but it is crazy to think we're talking about the Broncos saying if they don't make the 8, it's not.
Yeah.
It's just where it's crazy.
Where they're at.
Like, do you remember when they first missed the 8 years ago? Like, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, I know, bro. I know. You hurt me, Guru. Trying to move on here and you keep bringing me back in. Jesus.
You enjoy me not have a team. It's much easier, trust me.
Okay, now, James Tedesco, he wins his 5th Jack Gibson medal in a row and wins his 3rd Brad Fittler medal in 5 years. He also won all 3 major awards at Brad Fittler Award. It says also won all 3 major awards at Brad Fittler medal.
Oh, sorry.
I
used to work in New South Wales Rugby League and we called it the Brad Fittler Medal. That's sorry. It's called the Brad Fittler Medal.
Okay.
The awards tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
And I think he's the first ever player to win all the awards, isn't he?
Yeah, by far, yeah.
Like, what are we... Is he the second best fullback of all time?
Yeah, I personally think he is. Yeah, I mean, without, you've obviously got a couple of immortals that are fullbacks and whatnot, but I think...
From what you've seen.
From what I've seen, I think he's only behind Billy. I think if Lockie would have stayed at fullback his entire career, it's potentially a different conversation. But, I remember at one stage there during the 2000s, like, thinking no one's ever going to get better than Anthony Minichella and what he was capable of doing. Then Billy came along and... it should be noted, like, Teddy's won 5 of them in a row. He's only been there for 5 years. Every single year he's been at the Roosters. And you think about, like, the first 2 years he's competing with your Cooper Cronks, your Luke Keary's, like, it's an incredible effort. Like, even, I imagine once you win your 4th, when they're deciding who wins the 5th, they sort of go, fuck, should we share it around?
Yeah, like, as in, it's almost like, yeah, he was our best player, but let's give it to someone else.
Yeah, like, has someone else maybe deserve it? No, we'll give it to him. To win 3 out of 5 of the Brad Fittler medal as well, that's... And I mean, one of the years he didn't win it was when Turbo was playing a roaming fullback role.
And had Turbo and Trell had one of the great Origin series that we've ever seen.
And you watch every single highlight, who's on their inside? James Tedesco. He was there on every single play. He just wasn't needed because these two were so good.
Fucking hectic.
I think I was having a look through, the Jack Gibson medal. Like, Brad Fittler was there for 9 years. He won it twice.
It's just like, to think of the players that have been at the Roosters and how long the club has been around, the oldest club in the comp. It's just...
He didn't hear you.
You didn't hear me?
The pride of the league, Matty.
It's incredible. Like, think of the fucking players that have been at this club. It's just fucking amazing. I would say, look, me personally, and I'm probably biased, I actually would still have Lockyer as the greatest fullback of all time. I think a lot of the things we saw Slater do first came from Lockie, but I'm biased. Obviously, I play with him, so so if you want to have Slater 1, I would still have Lockie at 2, but Teddy's definitely number 3. There's no one I can't see anyone that's been as consistent or as good as him.
And that's the scary thing about Teddy. Like, he's 29. Like, he could still have another 6 years to go. Like, at least 4 or 5 to go.
Well, he seems so durable that he might.
Which is crazy because he seemed the opposite. Before he arrived at the Roosters, you didn't you weren't trusting he'd get through a season.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I always use Cooper Cronk as an example. Like, you looked at his career and with 3 years to go, you're going, it's a good career, but he's not up there with the absolute greatest ever. Then he wins 3 premierships in a row to finish his career. Like, Teddy's in a team that could do something along those lines. Like, he's already got 2 comps as it stands right now. He's got a Dally M medal. He's won all these Origin awards. Like, and he's in a good New South Wales team as it stands right now. And if they are successful over the next few years, I don't think it's going to be the last Brad Fittler medal he gets.
Mental.
When you think about the last few years, all the injuries the Roosters have had, like it's really the only thing that's probably derailed Teddy from having more premierships or grand final appearances or whatever. It's crazy.
Timmy?
Yeah, I'm really grateful every time I see Teddy get through another full season. For many reasons, just because he's such a beautiful footballer to watch. But I went to the same school as Teddy. He was a few years above me. Didn't actually line up there, but at St Greg's out in Campbelltown, there, rugby league nursery. And from a long, long time ago, as a very young bloke, Teddy, there was just this massive hype around him. Young fella from Camden, just this absolute superstar. Played Aussie schoolboys 2 years in a row. He was played anywhere from sort of fullback to 5'8", on the wing for them. But just kept finding these major injuries. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think there was a couple of ACLs. I remember while we were at Greg's, we went down and watched him play for the Tigers in a pre-season game, I think it was. It would have been 2011 or 12, and he did his ACL in that. He basically went from school, being this little wiry fella, speedster, to they packed weight on him. There's all this chat of, his ACL's gone from underneath him. Do they put too much weight on too quickly? And you're just thinking early on, this bloke could be anything, but don't let him be one of these great careers taken away from us. Not to say Billy Smith's as good as James Tedesco, but we're seeing what's happening with Billy Smith, and it happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Some potentially great players, it gets taken away from, which we've seen time and time again. And to see him come through years at the Tigers where he had injuries there, at the Roosters, go 5 seasons back-to-back, pretty well injury-free. We're so lucky to have Teddy in our game, and he's just a very, very special footballer and a very good bloke as well.
I'm going to give you guys a question that's going to hurt. It's going to hurt to answer. It's going to be tough to answer. We just spoke about how fucking amazing Teddy is. He is. One-off game, who do you pick, James Tedesco or Tom Trbojevic?
I would still go with Teddy personally. I just think he's more well-rounded. But I understand Turbo has probably got the highest ceiling, which makes it really tough. You've put us in a fucking corner here. But I would still go Teddy. I just think he is, you know what you're going to get every single week. He'd be my pick.
Timmy?
So you can't have them both in the team.
Can't have both in team. Teddy or Tommy? Add that just for one game, both at their best.
Jesus Christ. We'll go Teddy. I don't know.
Matty?
One-off game, Turbo. But Teddy, and this is one of the great fence sits, Teddy's the first player in the entire NRL that I pick if I'm starting a new team. That's including Cleary and Munster.
Really?
Yeah.
So if you're building a new club, you'd go Teddy
I go
instead
Teddy
of Cleary.
number one. Yeah.
Interesting.
Who would you go?
One-off game, they're both playing their best. Tommy?
Both playing like their absolute best possible game they could both play?
Yeah, both at their best.
Okay. Yeah, mate. Yeah.
Tommy's absolute best is unmatched.
It's pretty much all time.
I'll give you that.
Is there, if you could get, I agree with him too there. If you could get any player ever at their absolute peak best, would you have anyone in front of Tom?
Maybe GI. You know what? I'd have Cam Smith. Because, he just wins comps. He just fucking
let's go for the one-off game scenario.
One-off game, yeah. Okay, at their absolute best, probably GI.
In front of Tom?
Maybe, yeah. Just because, how many times did we see at Origin GI just fucking demolish cunts? Whereas, we've seen Tommy 2 Origins now. I think if I saw it's a one-off game.
Jared Hayne. Unbelievable.
I'd go GI over Hayne, and I'd go Tommy over Hayne. But I mean, mate, it's a tough one. It's a real tough one. I don't know. Maybe, you know what? I'm probably biased because GI is my generation. So I was always just this guy is fucking unbelievable. But it's a tough. If you were to say Tom Trbojevic on his day is the greatest rugby league player of all time, I think that's a reasonable statement on his day.
On his best day, yeah.
Anyway, now on to Prime Minister 13.
Which just on that is crazy because Turbo's 25.
I know, he's fucking amazing. And he hasn't really had the opportunity to, he hasn't had the, 200 games to pull from.
He's played 120 first grade games.
So it's just needs to hopefully get the body right and he'll be sweet. What's up, guys? Before we get back to the footy chat, make sure to grab a case of Bloke Midi. We're now in every single Liquor Legends. Go to liquorlegends.com.au, put in your postcode. It will show you your nearest stockist. And OG Bloke is in every single Celebrations, Bottle-O, IGA Plus Liquor, and Porter's Liquor in New South Wales and ACT. Plus, it's in every single Celebrations superstore in Queensland. Also, we're in plenty more stores. You go to blokeinabar.com, you put in your postcode, it will show you your nearest Bloke stockist. Now on to Prime Minister's 13. Now the Prime Minister's 13 is players selected out of teams that didn't make the 8. Pretty sure? Correct?
There's a couple of Roosters in there, so I think it's teams that are just out at the moment.
At the moment. So the Prime Minister's 13 is Dane Laurie at fullback, Josh Adokar at 2, Selwyn Cobbo 3, Zach Lomax 4, Jojo Fifita at 5, Matty Burton 6, DCE 7, Tino 8, Benny Hunt at 9, Flegler at 10, Nat Butcher at 11, Crichton at 12, Josh King at 13, Max King from the Bankstown Bulldogs, Bo Firmer at 15, Jake Simpson at 16, Luke Garner at 17, Josh Curran at 18, Jake Averillo at 19, Sam Walker at 20. What do we think about this side, boys?
Yeah, it's always an interesting side. Obviously, they mix a lot of young guys in with a couple of experienced guys, so it's always hard to sort of evaluate these sides. But just hasn't Jojo Fifita come from the clouds?
What a I mean, he's been solid for sure, but just wow.
Yeah, he's not like normally you can sort of get a vibe for guys that you think could be picked in this one. Like guys like Luke Garner doesn't shock me. A guy like Josh Curran doesn't shock me. But yeah, Jojo Fifita, that one's a little bit outside of the box. Like the two centres, Selwyn and Zach, I back those two. I think they're good picks. Then you have the experience of Josh Adokar. I'm excited to see Dane Laurie, mate. I think in a team that has really battled the last 2 years, I think he's been fantastic for them. Week in, week out. It's good to see him given an opportunity. I don't know if I would have picked DCE. I just don't know what it does for DCE's career at this point. I look at, they picked Ben Hunt as well at 9. I don't mind Ben Hunt having a game. He obviously, by the time the World Cup rolls around, I think he'll be the starting 9. He wouldn't have played footy in 8 weeks. So I don't mind that. But yeah, I thought maybe instead of DCE, they've got Sam Walker in the squad. I think he would have been an unreal pick to give him an opportunity in this.
Yeah, I agree. Even Benny Hunt, I don't see the purpose. Like guys like that, like Adokar, Hunt, DCE, Crichton, those kind of guys, I'm like, it's kind of like, I don't really see the purpose of them. Like these are Australian players. Like they're going to play for the country or at least be in the squad. Maybe it is to get fitness in their legs, but I feel like these we're talking about professionals here. They stay fit. They're going to be good to go in a couple of weeks.
When I have a look at the back rowers they picked on the bench, your Garners, your Currans, these sort of guys, like, fuck, I would have much rather seen them in there than Angus Crichton.
Yeah, because we know...
I know what Angus can do. He's
a gun. Timmy, what do you reckon?
Yeah, some interesting selections in it that you've touched on in DC and Benny Hunt. I sort of look at this team, all right, what's the selection criteria for it? And it's in my eyes, it's two things. Number one is obviously an eye to the World Cup. Any contentious decisions that Mal's not too sure on, he'll throw into this team and give them a chance to impress. And in that sense, you throw someone like Josh Adokar in there on the wing, who may or may not get an Australian spot. He probably wants Benny Hunt getting a game at 9 after playing halfback for the Dragons all season. I mean, I suppose DCE is thinking if he's got any question marks over him v Cleary, he's giving DCE another chance to impress, but I mean, surely he's made his mind up on that one by now.
I mean, well, let's talk about it. Who are you selecting for 7 for Australia?
Nathan Cleary, without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Timmy?
I'm Cleary, but I had before the jersey stuff and before Manly lost 7 in a row after Origin, I was DCE, but now I'm back to Cleary.
After Origin, I had DCE, but like watching Cleary come back into finals footy, it's got to be Cleary, surely.
Has to be.
Surely. It's time, is it not?
I think so, mate.
I just kind of, like, put it this way, even if DCE was like, let's say it was 1% better, I even still think the benefits of blooding Cleary now outweighs that 1%. You know, I just think it's give the side to Cleary. It is time. And DC, outside of the end of the year, which everything happened, he had a great year, like a fucking great year. But Cleary has just been he is the 7 of the competition.
And it's not like we're saying that because Nath's got potential. Like, he's shown it on the biggest stages.
Oh, he's there.
Like, he is there.
Yeah.
He is the best halfback in the competition as it stands right now, and he'd be my order. I wouldn't even think twice about it now.
Yeah, it's interesting because like even Joey said he'd go DCE. And look, I can understand when you go to the big arenas, the big games, the Queensland, New South Wales, DCE got it done. But like that's 3 games of rugby league. What about the last 2 to 3 years where Cleary has just been like? We have to remember Nathan Cleary is the head of a side that's lost 5 games in 3 years. Max,
Something like that. Yeah.
Can you imagine a World Cup final and just Nathan Cleary not being in it? Like, instead of playing the Kiwis or whoever it might be, Kiwis just be going, thank Christ for that.
Yeah.
There's no disrespect to DCE. It's saying that Nathan Cleary is probably the best player in the NRL. Like, he's, God.
imagine seeing Cleary on the bench in a 14 jersey. Oh, how weird would that be?
Hopefully it doesn't happen.
I think you definitely take DCE. And look, if they go over there and Cleary's playing like a busted, 100%, you put DCE in for sure, no doubt. But yeah, Cleary's got to be the guy, surely. Look, put it this way: if DCE had a comeback from Origin and everything, and I still don't think he played poorly, but I just think everything that happened in the club didn't help. If he comes back and Manly make the 8 and they maybe get to the 2nd or whatever week, then I could see an argument where you'd go, look, they won the Origin series and DCE was amazing, and then they went on and played some really good footy, for sure. But I think with the drop-off of club footy, I think that it's just got to be Cleary.
Cleary's lost 3 games for Penrith in 2 years.
Far out.
What are we talking about? Fuck. Please. Like,
Yeah.
it has to be.
Honestly.
Has to be Cleary. Has to be. Yeah, wow.
And I respectfully do to DCE. Like, he's obviously the incumbent, but in my opinion, he's only the incumbent because of COVID. I think the handover would have happened already if it wasn't for that, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it had, like, again, we're talking about a guy that's led a team around to one of the record last 3 years.
Sorry, let me just add one thing. One of those 3 games, he got sent off.
So he's basically lost two games in 2
games,
years.
yeah.
Far out. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Okay. Yeah, and also, to be clear, guys, we all really, really rate DCE. We're just talking about Cleary is the guy.
And I think we'd all agree that, like, we'd all take DCE, wouldn't we?
100% he goes on it.
He'd be your next guy.
Because the thing is like Cleary can still learn so much from DCE. Like DCE he's seen everything, and you can even go back to that game 3, and DCE can teach him things about that.
Yep.
But it's time to put Cleary in that 7 jersey. Now transfer whispers. So as always, guys, these are just whispers. These aren't confirmed. These are, sometimes they pull through. Sometimes things change and whatever. I mean, you've been a journalist before, Timmy. Walk us through sometimes how, a story may drop, like such and such is going to sign here. And then they sign with someone else. And a lot of people will say, well, the journo's just made something up. But sometimes it doesn't happen like that, hey? Sometimes it is.
There's nothing worse, mate. And people, like journos copying flack for that and saying, the one that I hate is when they say, the journo just made this up. The journo's not sitting there one day in the office bored going, I'm just going to say Munster signing with the Dolphins for the sake of it. Like, that is so ludicrous. Mate, we've spoken about it on here a few times before. Things change at the flip of a coin. Injuries happen. Across one injury to club can change the entire dynamic of a squad. It can free up a lot of money elsewhere in your cap. A deal might be about to be done, and then another club goes, you know what, stuff it. We're coming to the party with a bigger offer out of nowhere.
Yep.
A journo like that can't preempt the future, something that doesn't exist. So things change.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's like any industry. There are a few people that may make stories up, but most, in my opinion, they're just doing their job.
Yeah.
And it's like anything. It's like podcasting. There's a few podcasters that may, be a certain way, and the rest are just normal blokes or women trying to do. It's like any industry. There's going to be a certain few that act a certain way. Any community, doesn't matter what it is.
There's a couple of knob footballers out there.
100%.
But that doesn't mean that every one of them is.
Exactly. There's exactly right. So this is Transfer Whispers, guys. Usually the mail is, pretty solid, but the first one is Latrell deal apparently done. Dave Riccio has said they weren't. If they weren't in the finals, it would have been announced already. So scoop is from David Riccio. Sorry. I will say I can see this being a reality because apparently they've cleared their books. Latrell has come back and like it's like if you don't think he's worth $1 million, I mean we all agree he's worth $1 million. Like lock that in. I think this is true, and I think that they as soon as put it this way, if they get bounced out, I reckon in that week that you'd announce Latrell's re-signed to kind of ease the fact that they lost. What do you guys reckon in this regards to Latrell?
Yeah, I can't see Latrell going anywhere anytime soon. I think he's very comfortable, very happy at South Sydney, and I think South Sydney would be crazy to let him go. They'd be absolutely mad. So, yeah, I think that one makes complete sense, and I agree with you. I think if they do get bounced out this weekend, I think before grand final we'll know.
Timmy?
Yeah, I think it's got to almost be a formality, doesn't it? Like, it'd cut deep even non-Bunnies fans to see Latrell at any other club than the Rabbitohs. Like, Roosters fans would probably disagree with that, but to see Latrell at any other club other than the Bunnies now, it just wouldn't feel right to me. So just lock in, mate. Sign a 10-year deal and finish your career there for all I'm concerned.
It's the best for rugby league that Latrell's at South Sydney, I think.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a perfect marriage. It's great. I love what he's been doing the last few weeks. Oh, mate, I'm so happy that he is just being who he is and
just embracing it.
Oh, mate, and like he's copped so much shit over the last few weeks. You know, like I was at that game the other day where the 40,000 were booing him the opening at the SFS, and it's like, you know, everyone got stuck into him that week because he wasn't at his absolute best for that dead rubber game. Once again, when it matters, like it has at every fucking grand final he's featured in, and the vast majority of Origins he's featured in, Latrell's on fire.
Yeah.
Killing it. And yeah, you can throw the 65 metres or whatever the hell it was. Once again, if you're focusing on that shit,
with Latrell especially,
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's you know, like I look at a guy like everyone wants to compare him to Turbo and to, you know, Teddy. I look at a guy like Dylan Edwards. He hardly plays down the left edge. I don't hear anyone bagging Dylan Edwards for that.
Yeah, for sure.
But
and
Latrell
also
does
like
things a little bit differently. It's the end of the world.
Yeah, and on the like the flip side is like, you know, Edwards puts up huge numbers sometimes, and he doesn't get put in the same category as Teddy. And rightly so. I think Teddy is in a different ballpark. But what I'm saying is like if you're just focusing on stats, I think Dylan Edwards has more run meters than Teddy this year.
And if you took Latrell's hands and gave them to Dill Edwards,
oh my god, you put Latrell's hands in anyone, fucking amazing. Yeah, look, I with the Latrell situation, what I think is a key factor though in this, if Latrell's re-signing, I would be shocked if Cody Walker isn't re-signing. I almost think they're so tight that they're almost like a package deal now. So I think if Latrell, I don't think, put it this way, I personally don't think Latrell would re-sign unless he knows Cody's re-signing. That's how close they are, that's the closeness you want between your spine. Do you think this puts pressure on anywhere else, like Damien Cook or other guys that are off contract?
Surely after releasing Adam Reynolds and Dane Gagai last year, surely they have got a bit of coin to throw around. So the other thing is too, like Cody Walker, Damien Cook, what are they, 31, 32 now? Yeah, I personally don't think Latrell will take that monster contract just yet. I think he'll know that his time will come once those other boys are done.
Just on Latrell and big games, he never lost an Origin series, and his last finals loss, I know he's been out at the back end of the last few years, but his last finals loss was the 2017 prelim.
Yeah, wow.
So with the Roosters, he won all 18, all the 19, and now he's 2 from 2 at the Bunnies.
And you go back through those grand finals, 2018, he stood over, in my opinion, one of the best centres of that generation, Will Chambers. You come to 2019, who comes up with the right-hand carry to flick? It's such an underrated moment in that grand final. You want to touch on that, or
you want a black eye?
But yeah, Latrell, every big game.
I didn't have enough last weekend. You want to throw that at me now?
Every big game, he stands and he delivers, and I know people are getting upset about him, you know, yelling at the crowd and everything after he kicks a goal. Like, he hasn't missed a fucking goal. It's not like he's not backing it up. You can't, like, you can get pissed off at him and upset at him. He's backing it up.
But it's also like, he's not just randomly yelling at people. He's getting yelled at and sprayed. So he's responding to it. You know what I mean?
He's not standing in a silent room screaming.
Yeah, or there's not like people are sitting, the fans not saying anything. Like, they're literally spraying him. So he's going, all right, I'll join in the game. I'll get it over and I'll look around and I'll fucking give it to you. Look, I think it's great. I think it's it just adds to the final atmosphere. You got this guy that said, you know what? If you're going to treat me like the villain, I'll be the villain for you.
Rugby league is desperate to have characters until we get characters.
Yeah, and then we'll solve them.
No, thank you, not for us.
Yeah.
No.
Just they don't like the characters that they like.
Yeah.
You know, it's Anyway, so look, the Latrell deal, crazy that they wouldn't sign him. He also has taken a pay cut the last few years, so I don't think he'd be demanding, like he doesn't seem like a person that's going to demand 1.5 or something crazy like that. I think he'd be quite a reasonable, around the 900 to $1 mil. Now, Eels set to sign Jack Murchie. Look, good solid signing. I thought towards the back end of the year for the Warriors, he was really good. Interesting though, because if Papali'i backflips, I'd assume this signing is more for like a Nakora, Kafusi kind of loss. If it is for Nakora, Kafusi, I think this is a great signing.
Yeah, and I would assume it will be. Their bench is going to look very different next year, Parramatta. This Papali'i situation's getting
very weird.
Yeah, like I saw Appy was on Matty Johns' show the other day and they asked him and he just flat out said, I'll 100% be there. No doubt about it. And I think the scary thing for sorry to get off topic, the scary thing for the Tigers is that, if they don't have an answer from IPAT pretty soon, he's about to go into a World Cup tour coached by Madge. I reckon Madge is going to have many positive things to say about the fucking Tigers.
Fuck. Yeah. Yikes.
They'd want an answer soon. I wouldn't be letting him go on that World Cup until
I'm honestly a bit surprised they've allowed, unless privately he has agreed and he's going, I'm surprised they've allowed it to go this long.
Why not say it then? What's the reason? Why not? If he had,
I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. Anyway, here's what it is.
Because that's the other thing. Like, if he doesn't go to the Tigers, they've let go of Luke Garner.
I know.
The other young bloke's gone to Manly, I think.
I hope he does. Honestly, I know the Eels are going way better and all that kind of stuff, but I'm of the belief, and look, I know the argument of players get let go. Trust me, I was fucking one of those players that was pushed out of a club, so I've been there. But just because you are treated a certain way doesn't mean that your principles should be compromised. Just because someone else treats you poorly doesn't mean you need to treat that someone else poorly. And I think that Papali'i, there are players that have been let go, but you've been offered a giant contract. You agreed to it. I personally think he should go.
No, I agree, and I hope he does go.
Timmy, thoughts on the Papali'i situation quickly?
Oh, mate, for the long-suffering Tigers fans, if he didn't end up there next season, I'd be gutted for them. I'd never had anything to do with IPAP. Seems like a good fella, though, and I just hope I'm sure he's a loyal man. He's signed his deal. I just hope he ends up there. I'd be shattered if he doesn't.
Yep. And look, at the very, let's say you really, and I've already spoken about it a little bit, if you really just don't want to be there and you really want to be at the Eels and the Eels love you that much, go to the Tigers, play hard, allow them and give them time to find a replacement and then go back to the Eels. You know what I mean? That is a good compromise.
The Eels will take you back in a heartbeat.
Exactly. And, they were planning to be without you next year anyway. Yeah. This is the same Eels that didn't offer you the big contract initially, bro. Anyway, now, so Jack Murchie, I think it's a great signing. Now, this one has caused, I think Eels fans don't like this one that has popped up. But apparently, reportedly, the Storm have their eyes set on Dylan Brown to replace Munster. This one's interesting because it's almost like, well, of course they do. What? I know some Eels fans don't want to hear that, that the Storm are chasing their next superstar. But it's sorry, Eels fans, but that's how fucking good this guy is. Of course the Storm are interested in this kid. Matter of fact, if there aren't 15 other teams interested in Dylan Brown right now, I would be absolutely shocked. He could go to any club in the comp, and I mean any club in the comp, and be their sixth right now the way he's playing and and how far he has to go in potential. Thoughts on Storm setting their eyes on Dylan Brown, Timmy?
Yeah, I've said, who wouldn't want Dylan Brown on the side? And Munster goes, frees up, 900 odd K, if not more. Dylan Brown, by the time this occurs, will probably be on onwards of that amount of money, particularly if he can notch a grand final or even a grand final win under his belt this year. His price will go through the roof. He's a halfback who just ran for 320 metres in an NRL semi-final in a 40-4 win or whatever it was. And down at the Storm, go in there, hop into their system under... don't know how much longer Craig Bellamy's got there, but it'd be a pretty enticing little deal for him as well. So if they've got the money to do it, look, when you've got superstar players, particularly young blokes, particularly young halves, particularly young organising halves, they're going to be on the chance for Whispers article for for every single week. So get used to it, Parramatta, because Brownie's going to be on there for a long time.
Yeah, I just mentioned obviously IPAP going on this Kangaroo on the World Cup with Madge. Like, he's going to spend the next 8 weeks with Jerome Hughes, who could be his halves partner at Melbourne, playing for the Kiwis. Like, I think he'd be a really good fit down there. Personally, I want to see him stay at the Eels. I think they've invested quite a bit into him, and they've obviously stood next to him when people were getting stuck into him. Like people forget how off Dill Brown everyone was.
Oh, everyone loves him now. Last year he was like the worst player ever.
Yeah.
Like literally, he's a balmy.
I don't know about you, but I was getting bullied week in, week out for saying positive things about him. I couldn't fucking believe it. It was unbelievable. So, yeah, I think he'd be a great replacement for Cam Munster, but I do hope he stays at the Eels because if Dill Brown leaves, along with IPAP and the other Reid, tough for Parramatta.
Yeah. What do you got there, Matty?
Do you think there's something kind of odd about the Storm chasing a superstar? Because it's very rare that they chase someone who's established.
I just think that they're not the same club as they have been for the last 20 years. I think this is a genuine rebuild. And also, you have to remember, before their 2007 premiership, they did go and find an Origin player, and that was Crocker. So, like, it has happened in the past. It's just when they need it, they'll do it. And honestly, like, if you could find one guy that plays a little bit like Munster, it's Dylan Brown.
Well, is he the closest thing to Cam Munster we've got now?
He's got to be. He's got to be about this. Like, he's actually athletically more gifted. I'd say footy wise, Munster is probably a bit more footy now. But when you come to the physicality of his body and the size and everything, he's almost like pretty much the same. So, yeah, look, the interesting thing with the Dylan Brown situation, I think it all relies on Mitch Moses. It's really interesting watching Dylan Brown because when Jacob Arthur comes on the field, I feel like Dylan Brown goes into his shell a bit.
He fades away. It's bizarre.
Well, I think it's a lot to do with, like, he's actually, he's spoken about this before, he's actually almost too humble. And so he really, he used to struggle with confidence. And I think the reason why he's doing so well with Mitch now is because he trusts Mitch Moses, and Mitch Moses has like given him that confidence to believe in himself, and you take the ball when you want it. And I think Mitch Moses deserves a massive rap for that, because Dylan Brown doesn't become the player he becomes without a guy like Mitch Moses taking him under his wing. And it's interesting because you would assume that when Arthur comes on, Dylan Brown takes more control. But he actually goes, I actually think he becomes more quiet because he's a bit more unsure about him, what his role is, whereas Mitch Moses, he trusts Mitch Moses. It's almost like an older brother figure. It seems like, again, I don't know, but I'm saying it looks like it. And that's where I can't see him leaving the Eels, because I think he has such a strong connection that's almost deeper than rugby league to Gutho and Mitch Moses. I think he sees them as, again, not like almost like a family figure, because this is a kid that moved over from New Zealand when he was 15 years old. So does he have that much family over here? Probably not. So that's
when Arthur's on the field, he's probably not sure if he's meant to be playing halfback or centre, and he's just like out of place.
Yeah, he doesn't know what's going on. Maybe I should jump out in the bloody centre.
I'm back to centre now.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. Like, you look at Dill Brown, and like we all know how talented he is, but like he's only 2 years older than Jacob Arthur.
Yeah, he's 22.
He's 22 years old, Dill Brown. Like we forget, I think we look at him and expect him to be able to play 7 and 6. Like he's still developing essentially.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And like he was incredible. What do you got there, Matty?
I want to ask a question. This was a long argument between me and my mates on the weekend, and I think it's a good time to bring it up, kind of off topic. Who's going to win the Eels Player of the Year this year?
Got to be Dylan Brown. I think it has to be Dylan Brown.
What do you guys reckon?
For me, it'd have to be Dill Brown or Sean Lane, but I would go with Dill Brown.
Oh, what a hot field, jeez. Dylan Brown.
It's got to be. No doubt in my mind. It's
Who are you arguing?
I was arguing Brown as well, but Moses, Lane, and Papali'i were all brought up.
No, got to be Dylan Brown in my opinion. He is the difference. He is the difference. Like their attack has gone to a whole new level. And also, when you go back and watch all the tries they scored on the weekend, we'll get to it actually. Guess who was the person passing it to Mitchell Moses? Guess who was the person squaring up the line to give Moses the space on the edge? It's always Dylan Brown. And it actually was like that last year. You just didn't get the raps that he deserves. Anyway, we'll get to it later on. Look, Eels fans, if I'm being honest with you, I think he stays for sure. But What I will say is get used to his name being in the paper, especially if they win a grand final, until he resigns. He's going to be in the paper every week about transfer whispers, not because of any nefarious thing or whatever. It's because this kid can be fucking he is so fucking talented. I cannot express it. He's fast as anything. He's fit as anything. He's strong as anything. He's got a great footy mind. His passing game is slick. Like he's got ticker. He's probably got the most cover tackles of any six I've ever fucking seen. Anyway, we'll move on. Knights have met with Luke Brooks' management. This is a really interesting one because the Knights have been chasing Luke Brooks for 2.5 years nearly. Thoughts on this one? Do we think it goes through?
Anything could happen at the Tigers. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know. I think Newcastle, they desperately do need a 7. Is Luke Brooks the answer? I don't know. He might be the best answer that they can get their hands on. I've said it before. If I was the Knights, I'd be going after Hastings before Brooks.
Yeah.
It looks like Hastings is going to be playing 13 next year. He's happy to play there, but he's a 7. Surely he's the easier and the better one to get.
Maybe even cheaper too.
Well, he probably would be.
Because for Luke Brooks to leave his million, I think he's 1.2 this year or some shit, or 1.1, he's going to need a big contract. Yeah. Whereas Hastings, he'd take probably 500-600K.
And as crazy as it sounds, it seemingly looks like it's going to be harder to get Hastings off the Tigers than Luke Brooks.
Yeah.
Which is unbelievable, but...
Yeah, what do you think, Timmy?
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken plenty about Brooks in the Knights, and I think it'd do him a world of good. He just needs that freshen up. I think his time at the Tigers has expired. He needs a change of scenery. The Knights are desperate for a quality halfback. I think it's a great fit. I hope it happens. I really do for both parties. I don't want the Knights to pay overs for him. And Luke Brooks, I think, I just think he's been paid overs his whole career. And if they do get him, it might cost him $900K, which I think is ludicrous, but I think he's going to get it somewhere for whatever reason. So, look, I hope if they do get him and they pay onwards of $1 million or 900 or 800, whatever it is for him, that it doesn't impact the rest of the roster too much. But look, a club that can bring Brooksy in there, KP at fullback, still a good forward pack on paper. It excites me, and I'd love to see it happen because I want to see him move on from the Tigers.
Do we think Tyson Gamble will start in the 6 for them next year?
I honestly don't know. I honestly, whatever's going on with their hearts, because they've got, Clune, Clifford, Gamble. Is Gamble really that much better than Clune or Clifford?
Well, all I keep hearing is that Clifford and Clune are being shopped around as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Whenever you hear Joey talk about Gamble, he raves about him.
Yeah, he loves the mentality he brings. Yeah, he must be then. I mean, he must have been signed to play 6. So.
And if you're playing Tyson Gamble at 6, personally, once again, you come back to the Luke Brooks or Hastings. I think Hastings would be the guy to partner with him. You need a 7 if you're going to play him at 5'8".
Yeah, this way, if they don't get... If let's say they're starting Gamble at 6 and then it's a Clune or Clifford to partner him, if they don't get a half... I mean, I know they've got Gamble, but if they don't get a quality halfback to partner Gamble, I don't see much changing for the Knights next year. They won't be as bad. They almost can't be, but not too much is going to change.
Now, Sloan reportedly unhappy at the Dragons being down in the pecking order and seeking a release. Look, I think this is almost obvious. A player as good as him. Where do you think a guy like Sloan could end up, and do you think the Dragons should consider releasing him? Do you think the Dragons should consider trying to get him into the side? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think he should have been in the side all year. I understand that when he's come in, he hasn't been fantastic, but I just think his confidence is shot there. I think the Dolphins will be one team that'll... I think they're the favourites to sign him if he is released, and I think going in under Wayne would be sensational for Sloan. He's just got so much untapped ability. It's crazy, and it isn't working at the Dragons, and for whatever reason, I would find a way to get him into their 13, but it seems pretty evident that that's the last thing they want to do, right?
Well, it seems like Ramsey is their fullback.
And you know what? Ramsey has been pretty good this year, to be fair. Ramsey's been heaps better at fullback than what I thought he would be. I thought they were mad doing it at the start, but he has been impressive, so good on him. But I think the ceiling that Sloan has is much higher than that of Ramsey.
What do you reckon, Timmy?
Yeah, I feel a little bit sorry for the Dragons in this one if they do lose Sloan because... we know how good he can be. He was really good at the back end of last season, but let's be fair, he hasn't done a lot to justify first grade selection this season. There's been a lot of errors in his game. He's had some nice moments, but Ramsey came in and took that opportunity with both hands. And for the back end of the year when Ramsey was there, he deserved to be picked at number 1 for them. So I would like to see him, Sloan, potentially get another crack at the 1 for the Dragons and make a fist of that. But you can understand why Sloan thinks he should have been getting more time at fullback for the Dragons, or at least in the top grade. But you can't understand why the Dragons didn't pick him there. So we'll see. It'll be fascinating to see where he ends up. But yeah.
And just on Sloan, like he went back and played New South Wales Cup this year. He played 15 games, 12 tries, 13 try assists, 9 line breaks. It's pretty handy down there.
Yeah, look, Ramsey definitely came in and played better. I will say, I just thought they were too quick to drop him. I think they could have given him a little bit longer to find his feet. But then also what it buys them as well is that, let's say he plays 5 games and he plays poorly for the 5 games. It buys them, mate, we gave you 5 games and unfortunately you need to work on yourself for a bit longer. The problem with dropping him was, 2 games?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something.
The problem with that is, like, in his head, he's thinking, I didn't get enough of a crack. So there's this, like, doubting as to whether you are ready for first grade or not. Where if it's like 4 or 5 games, it's like, mate, here's the evidence. You had 5 games and you struggled. And it's quite clear to him. He might go, you know what? Fair enough. Like, I need to go back and work on it. So, yeah. But I also agree with you, Timmy, is like, the Dragons are in a hard spot because when he did come back in, whether you believe it was the Dragons management or not that gave him no confidence, he didn't really give enough to get selected. So they're between a rock and a hard place after that. So going to be interesting to see what happens there. Now, on to the team of the week.
Sorry, there's one more transfer whisper that's just come through in the last hour or so. The Dragons are preparing to make a play for David Fifita 2024 and beyond.
Wow.
And they've just thrown this in that Fifita's partner plays for their women's side.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of unique.
Wow. I mean, it's such a precious signing because, like, he's so polarizing, even though he hasn't done anything wrong. If he doesn't go over there and absolutely kill it, he'll be the worst signing in history, even though it's just because he's so polarizing to people because of his big pay packet. I don't know. Look, they do need to sign someone. So at the end of the day, it's good, but also the pressure that comes with it if it does happen. Oof.
They might find a way to have their top 30 and the top 100 highest paid next year at this, right?
I
don't know if it's the right fit for Fifita either, to be honest with you. I think, as you said, it'd come with a lot of pressure. I don't think it's the move for either parties, personally.
I don't mind it, to be honest. And I think no matter where Fifita goes, there will be a club, and there'll be a lot lining up to do it, that'll be willing to take a chance on him at that, 800K that he'll get. There's going to be someone, there's going to be risk involved in it. Who that club is willing to take risk, I'm not sure. What I do know is that the Dragons are lacking X factor. They're lacking, probably, aside from Benny Hunt, that big name. You look at their team all year, it's hard to get excited about what's going to propel this team into finals football and actually making a fist of things in the back end of the season. Well, Dave Fifita is someone capable of that, and they just need an injection of attack, an X factor in that side, and Dave Fifita can be that man. So I think he'd be a good fit at the Dragons.
Yeah, I'm a bit like, I'm unsure. I just think it's a lot of pressure, but as we've been saying all year, like, when you look at that Dragons roster, you go, fuck, it just doesn't have, like, energy in it. It doesn't. So for what's on the board, I think it's probably the right call. It comes with a lot of noise, but then what's the alternative? The alternative is they don't sign anyone. And so we'd be sitting here going, why haven't the Dragons signed anyone?
You run out with Billy Burns and Toro Fuimaono.
Yeah, so it's like, I kind of get it.
At the same time, though, do you want to spend the money because you've got it, or do you want to spend the money on the right guy?
Well, the salary cap is just year on year, though. So usually, like, you can't save the money for the next year.
And put it this way, he's got to end up somewhere. Let's take the price tag out of it. Which club is the best fit for David Fifita, do we think? I think the Dragons would be a great fit for him. If we take just the risk of signing a big dollar player who we know can come in and out of games, who do we think the best fit is for David Fifita?
Yeah, see, I actually think it'd be one of the bigger clubs. I think the Dragons... Oh, fuck.
Why a bigger club?
Well, because I just think they would put him in more structure and go, like, they just get him in better positions. In saying that, Benny Hunt will be able to get him in good positions. So I'm in the middle on this one. Look, I'm in the middle in regards to who's the best club, but I'm not in the middle of if they've got 800K and there's no one else on the market, then I think it's a good call. But yeah, the pressure that comes with it is a lot. Now it's time for Team of the Week. And Team of the Week is brought to you by Dirty Merger Podcast T-shirts that are dropping next Monday at 6 p.m. Make sure to be there, guys. This comes around essentially once a year, and we will not be dropping these shirts again. And trust me, they're sick shirts. We put a lot of time and effort into this. You're going to absolutely love it. Also brought to you by Bloke Beer. Bloke Beer is now stocked in every single Celebrations, every single IGA Plus liquor, Bottle-O and Portals liquor in New South Wales and ACT, plus every single Celebration Superstore in Queensland, plus hundreds and hundreds of more stores. If you go to blokeinabar.com, you put in your postcode, it will show you the nearest stock. It's like a map, a Google map, and it literally has a dot where the closest one is to you, and it even shows you the address and how far away that Bottle-O is that stocks Bloke and Bar beer. Beautiful, easy drinking beer, guys. It's Aussie spirit in a can, and it's a beer for blokes that turn up for their family, mates, and good times. Now let's get to the Team of the Week. At 1, I had Gutherson. At 2, I had Milne. At 3, Graham. At 4, Bensini. 5, Mulatalo. 6, Brown. 7, Moses. Bowlaw at 8. 9, Cook. 10, Totola. Lane 11. Papali'i 12. Murray at 13. Madison at 14. 15, RCG. 16, Seller. 17, Latrell Mitchell.
Yeah, pretty similar side for me. No shocks there. Gutho at fullback. I had Tane on one wing with Mulatalo on the other side. Campbell Graham and Pensini in the centres. Dill Brown at 6. Mitch Moses at 7. I had the 2 Parramatta front rowers up front with Damien Cook in the 9. My back row, I had Colomantungi and Papali'i with Cam Murray in jersey 13. Then my bench, I went Latrell, Totola, Sean Lane, and I chucked in Corey Horsburgh there. He got through a heap of work in his game. Then 18th man, I had Lockie Elias as well. I thought he had a really good performance.
Yep, he was far out. He's just getting better each week. Now let's get to the games. What you've all been waiting for. Eels versus the Raiders. I mean, it's the Eels were fantastic. They were clinical. They were playing essentially, arguably their best game all year. But it's hard to say. Was the Eels just so dominant they forced the Raiders, I guess, to play pretty poorly, or did the Raiders run out of gas? What do you reckon, Guru?
Yeah, I think it's impossible to answer that question 100%. I don't think it was the Raiders' best performance. I really thought they missed Adam Elliott through the middle especially. I put up a stat on my page, like, it's crazy. In the first half, Lane, Bolo, Regan Campbell-Gillard, Papali'i and Madison, they all went for 100-plus metres.
Wow.
You look at the game on Saturday night, not a single forward went over 75 metres in the first half. So they just smashed them through the middle. The Parramatta Eels, it was really dominant. And I don't know. I think the Raiders, they fell out of that game very early. I think there was a little turning point there where I think it was Rapana. He almost scored a try. He sort of knocked the ball on, putting the ball down.
Gutho.
Then the next minute, I think it was near Corey, he got a HIA, so Madison came onto the field, and that's when Parramatta start to roll. And then the next set after that was when the ball went through young Savage's legs and Opachik scored. It was a huge 2 or 3 minutes as far as getting Maddo on early, and then it went from 6 points at that end to 6 points at the other end. And from that point on, I sort of felt like Parramatta were home and hosed from there.
How'd you see the game panning out?
Yeah, mate. Unfortunately, we were beaten by a better side. Whether it was the Raiders not turning up, I'm not so convinced. The Raiders were a long way from what sort of fans would have hoped they were going to put out. But at the same time, I think sometimes you've got to sit back and just cop it and say we're beaten by a far better side. You mentioned earlier about coming into the game and some people saying, they're pretty even teams. Well, at the end of the day, when you've got a spine of Gutherson, Moses, Brown and Reid Marnie up against Xavier Savage, a rookie who's a questionable spot in the team, Zach Wolf, who came from nowhere, playing 25-odd minutes as a starting hooker, and then Jamal Fogarty, who's coming off an ACL, and Jack White now shining light. Unfortunately, I think Para played probably to their potential, and the Raiders were underwhelming on the day, and just the stats told a massive story in this one. Para had 59% of the possession, and you look at the pack, you talk about the spine, well, that's irrelevant when the pack did what they did, and we were trounced through the middle. Para had 13 players run for over 100 metres. Their pack all went for over 150. They had 12 offloads amongst their forward pack. They ran for over 800 metres more than us. Reid Marnie was the only starting player to have less than 2 tackle breaks, so pretty substantial swinging numbers there, and Para were too good for us.
Yeah. So we'll speak about Raiders first, and then we'll get to the Eels. They just didn't look like they had that next gear in them. When the Para Eels forward pack was just hyper aggressive, super dominant, line speed, the contact, the size as well. I just think that, really the only other packs that can match that are, your Roosters, your Penrith, maybe the Rabbitohs. And I just think when you looked at the Raiders forward pack, Papali'i and Tapine can only do so much in regards to meterage. Now, Hudson Youngs is a really interesting player because he's not necessarily the most meterage kind of player. He's more like almost like an attacking weapon that can score points. And so then you've got Elliot Whitehead, who's, more of a veteran, doesn't get through a lot of meters. Horsburgh, again, got through a lot of work, but not a big meter eater. And I guess just nowhere near as big as that Eels pack. And that's where I really felt that, the Eels were just too explosive for the Raiders to handle through the middle, because when the Raiders spread the ball, they actually had the Eels quite stretched quite a few times. They just couldn't, I guess, capitalise on that. In regards to the game, I thought Rapana had a bit of a mixed bag, a couple of crucial errors. Now, some say that Gutho knocked the ball out of his hands for that try, but there was also a couple of other errors I think that he had. I think it was in the first or second set where he dropped it off literally running the ball.
First mistake of the game, yep.
Yep. The Savage one, I saw a comment last week and they said we focus too much, or I'll just say me, I focus too much on stats because Savage's error last week was him hitting the ball out dead. And I think when we talk about, like, for example, Savage and the errors, we're not focusing on one game. We're focusing on the whole picture, and we're saying, like, it's a regular occurrence, so it's becoming a concern. And I think, like, a guy like Savage, that error that he made, although was terrible bounce of the ball, it's just one of those little things in his game that is eventually going to happen. And that's why every week we'd go, Savage, he's looking better. Still had an error or two, but he's looking better. And that's why, like, we go in the big moments when you need to make that big play. And I feel like I'm being really harsh on Xavier because it was a fucking terrible bounce. But that's what I guess the big players can make that play. And I think Savage will become that big player. But at the moment, he's just he's still a rookie, he's still learning his trade. So the reason why we try to look at errors is, like, look, if it's happening every second or third week, it doesn't matter. But when you're getting 1 or 2 errors a week, regardless of whether it's you knocking the ball out or whatever, you have to go, okay, is this going to come back, I guess, and to hurt in the future? And unfortunately, although it was a nightmare bounce, it still was a play that, you would hope could get cleaned up or whatever. And, whereas you look at a guy like Gutho, and I just think that, like, how many times does Gutho make that play somehow? Like, he makes it. I will say, though, on the flip side of everything I just said, when the Raiders needed something special, Savage delivered. And so if you want to look at the future of what can be for the Raiders, look at that incredible moment from Savage. This is a finals game. He's already made, that was after the error, so he could have easily put his head down, could have easily just said, I've just, it wasn't my fault, but in saying that, I could have made it, or the play or whatever, comes out and scores a try from absolutely nothing. So I think Raiders fans, that's an exciting thing to look at. Like, tell me how many other rookies in a finals game can turn the game on the head like that and put their team back in it. Very, very few. So I think, although disappointing for Raiders fans, I think there's a lot to be excited for the Raiders next year.
Yeah, for sure. And like Savage, we've spoken about it all year. He's had these moments, and when you looked at the top 8 and you looked at all the fullbacks in the top 8, if that play was going to happen to anyone, it was always going to be Savage out of those guys because he is the youngest, he's the inexperienced, and there's been a lot of tough moments for him this year. But I mean, I think at some point they probably had to go through this with Savage. You know, we've said all year that we would have played Chance at fullback, and I'm more than willing to say I don't think that play happens if Chance is on the field. But Savage has learned a lot of hard lessons this year, and hopefully it'll pay dividends for the Canberra Raiders next year.
And in their defence, I don't see Chance doing what Savage did either for
and
that
that's
try.
the other thing. Chance couldn't score that try out of absolutely nowhere. So it goes both ways. You have got a potential superstar there who has got little things in his game to clean up as, how old is he, 19, 20?
Yeah.
Like as 19-year-olds should. He's been put on the big stage there.
And sorry, just to be clear, like, we've got high standards for Savage because we think this kid can be fucking...
because we know how good he is,
He's 20 years old. Whereas if this was a normal rookie, we'd be going, come on, guys, he's a rookie, give him a break, right? We're talking about this guy could be a 10-year fullback for the Raiders.
Yeah, and I like when they first picked him over Chance, I was very negative on it. I personally think that Savage has come a long way this year.
Oh, massively.
He has. There was that one in this game, but, you know, like... I felt like when he first came in at fullback, there was 2 or 3 every game. And, you know, I thought last week he potentially got away with one against the Melbourne Storm where he got up and tried to run again and he got taken out. They got a penalty for it. But I think these are just all things that Ricky Stewart would sit down with him each week and go, hey, in this moment, you need to be doing this. And hopefully he's just taking it all in like a sponge this year. And he'll be a really interesting guy to watch next year.
That's what I was going to say. I'm excited for next year. Like, I agree with you. You know, we said it ad nauseum. We're huge fans of Chance. We probably would have waited the next year. But imagine how much better Savage is going to be next year for this season. Like, I'm excited. I'm excited for the Raiders. Timmy, what do you think?
Yeah, the one that sort of stood out for me was the battle of the hookers in this one. And unfortunately, I think probably the Raiders at the moment are just missing, particularly with not necessarily a star-studded spine, just a top-line hooker to take us deep into the finals at the moment. And it's not a discredit in any way, shape or form of Zach Wolford or of Tommy Starling, because Zach Wolford, I think, has been one of the great success stories of the NRL this year, coming from nowhere to be a starting NRL hooker. And he's done a great job for us, but he's a solid hooker at best, and he's starting for an NRL club. We've then got Tommy Starling, who we've said time and time again on this podcast that Ricky Stewart obviously sees him as that ideally 50-minute max hooking role in tandem with another gun hooker. And I think that just sort of, the serves from dummy half isn't as good. That they don't have probably, Tommy's got a good attacking threat running game wise, but in contrast, you've got Reid Marnie, who I've just been rapping all year, and he gets better every time I see him. We mentioned how dominant the forward pack was. A lot of that comes down to Marnie's service, not only to the back line and to Moses and Brown. We know how great his long ball is and how it just hits him on the chest in the spot every time running on the ball. But the way he brings his forwards onto the ball, they're always playing on the front foot, and he builds that momentum. Like Cam Smith was the genius at it.
Oh, mate.
And Reid Marnie's obviously just, it's a bit of a gift to do it and get out there and get them running onto the ball.
Timing is so hard.
And to be getting out there and to have the cohesion with your forwards that, you know, they're not getting it 2 metres behind. You're not holding up where they're stuttering at the line. It's just perfect timing every single time. And I think just having Reid Marnie, I think him compared to the Raiders hooking duo was a major, major difference in this contest.
You mentioned with Reid there, like, as I said before, 5 of the Parramatta forwards ran for 100 metres in the first half. You know how many run metres Reid had in the first half?
Like none.
0?
It was 0. Because his service was just that good, and that was all they had to do to get on the front foot.
Yeah, yeah. I agree in regards to, I will say in the Raiders' defence, and I'm sure you agree, like, if Hodgson is at 100% and doesn't do his bloody knee in the first 20 minutes, they probably have a quality hooker that can deliver that service.
Yep.
So the Raiders are in a real tough spot where they probably, you know, Wolford, you're right. Wolford has been such a good story. And who knows, he may go away, do a preseason and come back even better. But they probably do need to go into the market, I'd say, for a hooker. Just quickly, back in the backs, I'm super excited. But, like, think about this back line. Savage, super excited about Savage. Like, that try was fucking amazing. And we're just seeing what this kid can do. Kotrick, he's still only 23 or 24. And I thought towards the end of the year, he was building in nicely and getting back to that form before he left. Tomoko, Chris, and then you've got Rapana, but then you've got guys like Albert Hopewadi, who is 18th man. This backline is young as anything.
Plus Harley Smith will come back next year.
Harley Smith. And so you've got Sebastian, Chris, and Timoko. They both got selected for the Kiwis.
Yeah, they did. Yes.
Yeah. I'm excited for this backline. Like, this is a backline that is super young. I'd argue it might even be one of the youngest backlines in the comp. And again, I just want to reiterate, like, I want to give Ricky and the Raiders raps. Like, they debut. This is almost a rebuild. And I think Ricky even came out early in the week. Did you see the article where he said that it was like a rebuild year? Well, basically, the article, could you just Google the article? So he took the senior players away. I think it was mid-year last year, maybe. And he basically, when it was, he took the senior players away, they went to dinner, and they said, boys, everything on the table. Everything on the table. And apparently the senior boys said exactly how they felt, rah-rah. Ricky said how he felt, and then the healing began. And that's also, coincide with Tarpon coming out and doing what we're doing. I'm excited for this Raiders next year, and I think that, Raiders, obviously they had that, really dominant period of it was late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ever since then, when they go through a rebuild, it's a fucking disaster. Like, it is a disaster. And there may be some years I'm missing, so I apologise, guys. But I think this is probably their best handled rebuild that I can remember since watching rugby league.
Since the mid-90s, they haven't really had these, because Canberra struggles to attract superstars. In those rebuild years, we don't have superstars to lean on to get us out of games and finishing in around that top 8. So there has been some crook ones, which is a credit to them that, rebuilding, cut you short, but
No,
sort of this season and last season, I know we missed the 8 last year, but 2 prelims and a semi-final in the last 4 years. We mentioned 3 or 4 weeks ago, but they'd make the 8, then they'd miss. But not just miss, like they could be very deep
Not
down
even
the
close
ladder.
to that,
And it was just up and down. So
Look at the start of this year.
Yeah.
They were 2-6.
Yeah.
Like, I personally think that, okay, disappointing into the year, I'm excited for the Raiders. I really am. And I think Ricky, the staff, the admin, everyone there deserves a massive rap because they just got through a season debuting a bunch of youngsters. If they're not debuting, they're in their second or third year. Their roster is fully refreshed outside of, Rapana and maybe Papali'i and Whitehead. So you've got 3 players. Everyone else is extremely young. And they were 1 game away from a prelim.
Yeah, and there are a couple of young guys there that are ready to go over the next few years.
Well, you've got, Mooney.
Trey Mooney will come in. Like Adam Elliott's going to leave at the end of this. That's the other thing. Like they lose Elliott, he's going to be a huge loss. But they have got Trey Mooney who they're grooming for that spot. Do you see him as a 13 over the next?
Definitely, and he can play edge or middle, Trey. And then the other one there is who we lost early on in this game, which didn't help, but it was Corey Hawera-Naira, who I don't know his exact age. He'd be mid to sort of, not be late 20s, I don't think.
26, I'd say, max.
I think they can get more minutes into him next season as well.
They've also over the last few months they've it's a long way down the track, but they've signed some of the best young kids from they've taken a few from the Roosters. They signed a kid from the Sharks a few weeks ago who are very talented youngsters who I know when I was 15, 16, like respectfully, I couldn't think of anything worse than Canberra.
When I was playing, I honestly was like, I probably would quit before I went to Canberra. Has nothing to do with the club. It's just way too, I'm from the Gold Coast. It's too cold. On top of all that, I went to New Zealand and I realised how much the weather affects my mood. And you might go, oh, that's fucking soft or whatever. And maybe it is soft. But seriously, living in a really cold environment for me, I just struggle. I need to be at least somewhere that's semi-sunny, and because I just grew up in it. I'm from the Gold Coast. Yeah. And so you guys are right. Getting to the Raiders is tough, but they got Jackie White. And what's Jackie? He's 28, 29?
Be at 29, 30.
Yeah.
At 29, I reckon, Jacko.
What do you got there, Matty?
Yeah, just pretty much confirming what you said. There was 16 of them, key staff and senior players, and they went away for a night and had a 3-hour hash out. They called it a conference, and then couple of beers in a feed and just that's how we did
honestly, I think this is a massive win for the year for the club, and it's almost like the polar opposite of the Broncos. They've ended at the start of the year, it was like pressure on Ricky, captain standing down and rah. They've ended the year with so much hope, and I think again, I think a guy like Savage, I know I keep coming back to him, but he's a marquee guy. You know how many tickets he can sell. He's a guy that you can, at the club, that for the next 10 years, people are going to come and watch. And it's exactly what Canberra need, is this young, exciting, brash kid that makes big plays in big moments.
Jack Whiten's 29 and Corey Haruinura is 27.
I think it's also worth, like you said over the last few years, how they've had highs and lows and everything. Like they've also had 3 halfbacks during that period.
Yeah.
Like now it looks like Fogarty's going to be the guy, and they are going to be settled on him. And to be honest with you, I didn't think he'd have the impact that he did have this year. And once he did come back, and it's something that I sort of undervalued until you pointed it out 2 weeks ago, that he really was a turning point for them this year, wasn't
Massively.
he?
Massively.
Came around 14 or 15 or something, and from there we're on a tear.
Yeah.
And again, that's what we spoke about all season of the importance of a good organising halfback, and he hasn't stood out in games at all.
Not at all.
But he's just helping get us around the park, and he just unleashes Jackie Whiten really well.
Yeah, massively.
I mean, Canberra lost half their spine, like Hodgson and Fogarty early in the year. Ricky says they probably would have made. He thinks they would have made the top 4 if they were fit. Do you guys tend to agree?
It's 2 to 3 wins off it.
Yeah.
So would they? Maybe, but it's not unreasonable. Like, some people go, "Oh, come on, Ricky." I don't think it's an unreasonable statement.
They finished on 30 points. Parramatta finished fourth on 34.
I honestly, I don't think it's an unreasonable statement from Ricky. And again, that's why I'm so excited about this team going forward. This is a team that is 2 wins off the top 4 and made the 8 in one of the toughest years we've seen in a long time to make the 8, and went down to Melbourne, beat Melbourne. I'm excited. And so for Raiders fans, disappointing way to end, and 40-4. There's no covering over the fact that the Raiders weren't at their best. But, if someone said you can make the 8, get second week of the finals, and that's going to be your rebuild year, that's a fucking win.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big win. Outside of that, I want to give Corey Horsburgh a massive rap. I know you had him in the team of the week. I thought towards the end of the year, did he have an injury mid-year? I feel like there was a period where he wasn't playing.
Yeah, he missed a good chance.
Yeah. Ever since he's came back, because Corey Horsburgh was a guy that was on the Origin radar for a bit.
He was in that 2020 year. He was so close to making it, and then he had a foot injury at the back end of the year.
Yeah.
And
he would have been there that year.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so, the way he's played for the back end of the year, I think he's been so underappreciated by the wider. Raiders fans, I'm sure, appreciate him. But just his energy and, his stats aren't fucking crazy and you're not sitting there going, holy shit, it's 300 metres or whatever. But if you go and watch the game and see the way the energy changes when he's on the field, it's massive. I thought he was really good, got through a bunch of work. Hudson Young, we've been over him a million times, but once again, he still ran for 127 metres against a well-beaten side. Outside of that, you've got Chris, you've got Timoko, you've got Kotrick. It's really interesting because it was 40-4, but there were points in that game that if they just had the ball had a bounce the Raiders' way, yes, the Eels would have still won for sure. There's not Eels definitely were the better team, but if the ball bounces away, you got the Rapana try, there were certain times where they would make a breakdown an edge and they just didn't finish off. The game would have been much closer. So I think I don't think it's as bad as 44 suggests.
I think Parramatta would have beaten just about every side the other night, not named Penrith potentially.
Yeah, agreed.
They played well, and I come back to it as well. You mentioned it without harping on it. I think if Jordan Rapana scores that try in the 12th minute, you've got a very different game.
Well, okay, let's say you go Rapana scores it, and look, guys, I know you hate the what ifs, but we're just talking about key moments, big moments in games. Rapana scores that try, and then Savage's legs are a little bit closed, and he hit his knees instead of going through. Momentum changes. Look, Eels still definitely win.
But it comes back to as well, the Rapana knock on is why they had the ball for that play. So it does change the entire.
Eels still have definitely won, but these little moments that and it's a credit to the Eels because the Eels won those moments because it was Gutho that put his hand in there to make Rapana drop it. Yep. But I agree in the sense that 40-4 I don't think reflects exactly how the game went. So, look, Raiders a bit underwhelming, but exciting times for next year. Anything else on the Raiders' performance, boys?
No, yeah. It will be interesting to see without Adam Elliott this year. I think he's been so important to that side the entire season.
Do you think they need a 13? Because, they've been tossing and turning and bloody changing their 13 constantly.
Well, I know that we just said that the halfback coming in, I also thought when they just settled on Adam Elliott at 13, I thought that made a huge difference. You would have watched more than me, but I thought it was massive for them when they just put him there and left him there.
Yeah, he was great. And I think probably we sort of emphasised the importance of a really good ball-playing lock, and I suppose maybe worry next year a little bit who that will be for the Raiders. But at the same time, we're also such a forward-heavy side. Like, a lot of our footy's played through the middle. We win a lot of our games just through pack dominance, which we obviously didn't get on the weekend. So I don't think that link play between lock, hooker, halves is as important as other clubs, where, like the Rabbitohs, like the Sharks, who that ball movement is just so pivotal to their game.
If I'm Ricky, I'm, picking 2 to 3 guys, or 2, that I think are going to be my 30 next year, and they are ball playing all off season. Like, seriously, I am not letting them off the field unless they've been on there for an extra hour ball playing every fucking session.
Are you assuming it'll be Whitehead? Like, that was obviously the idea at the start.
Would you go? I'd go Trey Mooney, wouldn't you?
Oh, I would, but I mean, they came into this season wanting to play Whitehead as a 13, so that's the only sort of take that I'm looking at.
Me personally, from what I've seen, and it's a very small sample size, I'd be going Trey Mooney, and I'd be investing. It's Trey Mooney, correct?
Yeah.
I'd be investing heaps of resources in regards to coaching staff. Like, he would almost be nearly my most importantly trained player of the off season, and I would be just dedicating so much time, because, like, when you watch him play, especially, I know it's in the under, was it 19s Origin that we watched?
Yeah.
This is a special player. Like, he was the standout forward of that game, and also he was getting in the faces of the Queensland forwards. So, like, he is that guy. I'd be putting a bunch of resources into him. If I have to hire a former 13 or whatever to come down and train with him 2 to 3 times a week, I'd be doing that. I do think the wishy-washy nature of selection in that 13 role probably did hurt him over the period of this year, and I think that going forward they should select someone and stick with it. Again, easy for me to say, but that's my thought. What do you think, Timmy?
Yeah, no, I do. I do. Look, I always like cohesion in sides and picking and sticking, trying to change it up as little as you can. But as I said, they're a bit of a rough and tumble, knock down the front door type 4-pack, the Raiders. So I do think more than most sides they can get away with chopping and changing players just to give them fewer minutes and just to manage them over the season. But I know what you're saying, for sure.
Any other? What were your thoughts on Jackie Whiten's hit on Moses? Was that an issue? Should have been a penalty? Did you like the fact that Whiten was filthy?
Well, was this the one that was a bit of a head slam, or when he came back on the field after?
It
was 2, wasn't there?
There was a bit of a head slam.
Yeah, I don't know if you call it
It
wasn't a head slam, but
kind of was
a head slam.
The other one, now the commentator said there was no contact to the head, but I'm not too sure. I didn't get a good enough angle, but what thoughts? Was it the wrong call? Thoughts?
Yeah, I thought there was a bit of contact to the head personally, but I also, why the fuck was Mitch Moses back on the field then?
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll get to it. Fuck. I thought Parramatta were going to get exactly what they deserved for a split second there in that moment. No, anyway, we'll get to that. But yeah, I thought that Jack was potentially a little bit lucky to get away. Was it a penalty in the end? Did anything?
Penalty for a rough play or something. What was the word? Unnecessary roughing, some shit like that.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Timmy?
Oh, mate, I can't take the green goggles off of this one. I didn't get much enjoyment out of that game, so to see him absolutely whack Mitchy Moses, one of 2 moments, that and Savage's try, so I'm all here for it all day.
I will say, if there was no contact to the head, that's the dumbest penalty I've ever seen. Like, unnecessary roughness. What?
Honestly.
What are we talking about here? Now, look, if you wanted to say it was a shoulder charge, okay, maybe. But if you're not going to call it a shoulder charge and there was no contact to the head, what a joke. What are we talking about here? Like, this is a good, strong tackle that, like, he had him on the ground. Like, we're talking about rugby league here. Like, they're running at each other, 120 kilo blokes from 10 metres, 20 metres away, and a half gets a little bit roughed up and we're giving penalties away.
For the prelim, just give Mitchy Moses a non-contact bib, throw some Oz tags on his edge, and we'll just tag him.
So look, if there was contact with the head, put it this way: if there was contact to the head, if there was contact to the head, he should be in the bin. So that's what I don't get with these inconsistent calls. Like, if it's unnecessary roughness, that's embarrassing. If it was contact to the head, that's 100% 10 in the bin. It's a swinging arm to the head of a bloke on the ground. But anyway, what I will say though is I loved the fact that Jackie was angry. That's what you want to see in your players. He's pissed that they're not going to make the finals. They've been dominated all night, so he's going to try and put a shot on his opposing 7, even though the game is over. Anyway, just thought I'd get your thoughts on that. Now, on to the Eels. What an incredible performance. I mean, look, there were times, I think, defensively on the edges, I still think they're a little bit vulnerable, but their forward pack, it's a like double-edged sword, because when they go into contact pre-planning offloads, it never works. But when the Eels go into contact just worried about winning that contact, the offloads come. And so, like, nearly every one of their offloads, I wasn't sitting there going, oh, shit. Like, I was like, oh, no, the ball is seriously easy free. When the Eels play like that, honestly, they can beat anyone. And I honestly believe they're the only team that stands a chance against the Panthers. I thought their forwards were absolutely incredible. I thought their reaction to everything in the media, I thought they showed that they're a galvanised group. Gutho made some really, really big plays. We'll get to Dylan Brown. Wonga Blake, for the life of me, did he get one high ball kicked to him?
Wasn't many.
No. That's one thing where I'll say the Raiders stuffed up, because it's like, that is shocking to me. Wonga Blake didn't get a single...
God.
Like, when I was watching, I was going, did they watch last week? Because
Fogarty came out and said it during the week that he'd be targeting him.
So do you think it was just because the Eels put a lot of kick pressure? Because the Eels did put a lot of kick pressure on, which is good to see. But what a missed trick by the Raiders.
And we were dominated so much, so we were always kicking from deep in our own half, or like around halfway. It wasn't the kicking from on halfway or just past halfway where you can just put a bomb up and take it. It was harder. A lot of just long kicks downfield that anyone can take. So.
But don't you just risk it? Like, if you
put it up.
Yeah, just put it up.
Yeah.
Like, just get it up there. Because even they did put a couple up to Gutho, and Gutho let them bounce. Anyway, we've spoken about the Raiders. Outside of that, the Eels looked as good as they've looked all season long. I thought their attack looked probably the best it's looked all season long. What I found really interesting, and obviously I messaged it to you, I kind of felt Dylan Brown was playing the 7 role in the first half. Like, I really felt like he was calling the shots. If you go back and watch that, Moses was staying on his side of the field, and it was actually Dylan Brown that was shifting from side to side and being the first off the ruck or second off the ruck, giving it to Mitchell Moses. And I wonder whether, was Mitchell Moses a little bit groggy still? Not groggy, but feeling the effects. And was the game plan Brad Arthur going, Brown, we need you to step up here. We need you to take... Because Brown had 29 runs. 29 runs, and Moses had 10. And so have the Eels unlocked... Almost, is this a direction going forward for them where the best way to get Brown into the game is saying we need you to essentially, Moses will tell everywhere to go, but when it comes to the plays, we need you calling the plays.
Quick sidebar before you do that. With NRL.com stats, do we know at what point it becomes a run? Because I know, like, catching the ball is not a run. And when meterage and yardage, well, not yardage, when meters go onto your tally, because with Brown, because of the speed of the play balls, he was catching, running his 5-6 meters, and then he'd dish on. So I'm assuming he wasn't tackled 29 times. So do we know, is it like, do you have to run is it 3 to 5 meters or something for it to be counted as a run?
I think, isn't it just advantage line?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to take another guy, for example, Reid Marnie, like, he finished that game with 5 run meters. I mean, like, the amount of time he gets out and just engages the markers and then gives, like, you would have to assume that adds up to more than 5 meters over 80 minutes as well. So
it must be a minimum of 5 meters.
Yeah, it must be something like 5. So, like, someone out there will know what the go is. So
I do know Fox and NRL use different stats.
Yeah, particularly when it comes to attacking stuff like try assists and tackles. NRL will credit sort of third man in a lot more, whereas Fox tend not to. They give it to the first 2 dominant tacklers. But try assists, NRL will often give it to like the centre who tips on. Fox are a bit more subjective in like who creates the overlap and that.
Well, sometimes Fox will it'll be like 2 passes before they give the try assist too.
Just on Dylan Brown, you mentioned, had 29 runs of the ball, and it's not like he was just falling into contact and taking it. He ran for 320 metres.
I know. 321 metres. It's just... and 6 tackle breaks. And, like, I mean, we'll talk about it.
Hang on, just before I've got the glossary here. So there's 4 different types. So the hit up, when a ball carrier directly runs at the tackler. Kick return, ball carrier takes ball into contact. Dummy half, ball carrier runs into contact from dummy half. And then there's line engage, when a player has engaged a defensive line or run to a dead end before passing or kicking. So,
which is what Brown would be
so
getting.
what's Brown? That's what Brown's getting.
Is line engagement.
He's going and engaging a...
Whereas if you're from
He's got
dummy
quite a
half,
few runs though. If you go back and watch that, he got tackled quite a bit.
whereas if you're actually in Reid Marnie's case from dummy half, you need to get tackled or at least hit the defensive line.
It's my favourite thing about Dill Brown, though, that when he's got the ball, he'll pass it if someone's in a better spot than him. If not, he'll just go.
He'll just go.
He's not afraid to take a whack.
Yeah.
It's not on.
He, let's talk about it, because I thought this call was absolutely outrageous. The forward pass, allegedly, to Gutho was... What I don't understand is, like, how many forward passes have we seen actually let go? And then the one that's, like, at best flat, but it's everyone can see it comes out of his hands backwards. And, like, when I see that and I go, my tinfoil hat gets on and I start going... Are they giving that because the Raiders are getting pumped and they're trying to get them back into the game? Like, if it was a close game, would they still give that? Because I kind of feel like, is there anyone that didn't think? Is there anyone? Well, let's get it out here first. Honestly, did any of you guys think when he threw that it was forward and not back out of the hands? And you can be honest.
No.
I haven't spoken to a single person that thought that pass was forward. Now, what if that was in a crucial moment in the game? And it's like, that's a shocking call. Like, it makes no sense to me. And then we'll see other games where it's like blatantly forward and you're going, what, how? Anyway, outside of that, Dylan Brown was absolutely fantastic. And I think the key to Dylan's game basically is, mate, we just need you to have 20 plus runs and everything else opens up. Because that's how good that's how good this guy was. He was unbelievable. His pass selection, and also what I love about Dylan Brown as well is, like, he engages the line, but he rarely throws hospital balls. Like, he gets them in the perfect position, but he's so good at making the right call of, like, okay, they might be in a little bit of a position, but they're about to get jammed, and he doesn't give it. And the amount of times he gets lane in the perfect, like, just such a good line, and also the defence is sliding, it's a one-on-one tackle. Dylan Brown was absolutely phenomenal, and I thought Mitchell Moses was really good as well. Outside of that, their forward pack were incredible.
As you said with Dill Brown, obviously, like this year, I felt like last year, and we spoke about it all year, that he was coming up with these fantastic plays, but he wasn't getting any stats for it, and he was stuck on that left edge, and that's Clint Gutherson's preferred side, so you always see him hovering down, and he always just peels that 3-on-2. And last year, Dylan Brown, he was never crossing the black dot, whereas this year, now you're starting to see it, and like we saw that try that I think it was Mitch Moses threw the cutout ball for Wonga Blake on the right side, and when Dill Brown gets into first receiver, like, I think he got the ball and he had Junior right next to him. It was just a perfect face ball out to Mitch Moses. All the eyes are on Junior because he was the big body there. It's just a really it's simple, but just it had to be perfect to get it right, and they nailed it.
Yeah, it's just he's so silky. Like, and again, the passes are nearly always in front. They're always hitting their mark. He usually makes the right call. And I think if you went to try involvements, there might be maybe one try he wasn't involved in. He was involved in nearly every other try. Was there anyone that stood out for you, Timmy?
It was just more the way they're playing as a team. I can't believe how well they're just playing in unison, Parramatta. From 1 to 17, they are just on the same page. And one thing that stood out for me is just the push support in that side. So, sorry to use the Broncos as an example, Kempy, but 2 years ago when they had a good lineup and they just had no go forward, they were just in all sorts. I'm sitting there, what's happening? And you looked at them and they're just going one off the ruck, one off the ruck, one off the ruck. Parramatta, the difference between that and a good side is, and this has always confused me because it seems such an easy thing to coach, is Parramatta have 2 blokes going up on the right side of the ruck, 2 blokes going on the left side, and then they'll have their halves or their lock or whoever going out the back, and they've just got options. This isn't that hard a thing to do and harder thing to inject into your game plan. As a defensive line, there's a million different options they can go with. So Paris Park are just playing in unbelievable unison. So much of their game plan is centered around having these hard-running, gun-back rowers. They get in under the inside shoulder of their halves, and the second they do and they get them to commit, this is any NRL team, but Parramatta do it better than just about anyone. They're whacked straight out the back, and then the speed they play in the back line is exceptional. But the second they hit short on a Lane or a Papali'i, Dylan Brown or Mitch Moses or Clint Guthan are there for the offload, push support. And it's really enjoyable to watch it all unfold. And then that's the other thing. If they go at the back row going hard at the inside shoulder of the half, if he doesn't commit and they'll just sort of lay it off to him, boom, that'll mean that their short side's not stacked up with, say, back row or centre winger, and they might find a front rower out there because they've had to squeeze out there. Mitch Moses and Dylan Brown are two of the best short side players in the competition. The second they see a front row or anyone out of position, they take them on, they get them for speed, and they score so many great short side tries. Just really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. Oh, you're totally right. And I think a really good example of exactly what you're talking about is like when you run in pairs all the time, it's great for that run, but it's also great for all the runs that follow it, because the Dylan Brown no try, he ran through a gap that might have been, like, it was almost like, oh shit. Like, he realised it was there and just went, boom, gone. But that gap is because the inside men, the same shape that they're seeing of, like, let's say it's coming out at their own end and it's Paulo and RCG, or it's Madison and Paulo, that same shape, you have to be honest, and you have to stay, and you can't slide out. And that's why you see these, I mean, the Rabbitohs do it perfectly. But that's why you see these giant gaps all the way out on the edges, because, like, for the last 3 sets, the Eels have just been jamming it through the middle with those 2-pass shifts. And then on the 5th set, that's the Brown one, they hit out the back, and all of a sudden that condensed line that's been trying to stop these massive forwards is too condensed, and there's these massive holes. So, yeah, you're absolutely right there. And, like, Madison's ball playing, it's fucking so good. You know, I'm surprised that he doesn't start at 13 more often, but then he just is so good off the bench. I wonder whether he's going to play more of a role at 13 next year, because I know he wants to be a 13.
I think in Brad Arthur's mind, he knows that they need to start games going north and south. When they start to go lateral, that's when they lose their way. Like, for me personally, I always look at, as soon as Madison walks on the field, that next 20 minutes, that's the most important 20 minutes when you're taking on Parramatta. If you can win that period, you go a long way to beating this side, because they'll beat the living shit out of you to start the game with these 2 front rowers, and he gets on and they get a bit of ball movement, and if you can win that period, you can sort of leave them in the... and you saw that's what Penrith did the other day. As soon as Matto got on, they won that period, and it takes you so far against Parramatta because he is so talented. But I personally think ideally, Arthur wants to keep him coming off the bench. I think he's perfect there.
He just... Like, it's bizarre because, like, back in the day, it was like bench players were the not as good players or whatever, but, like, Madison is just so important. Like, that try with Junior Paulo... it's like just a yawning gap. It was just like, boom, right there. But it was because it was a quick play of the ball. Madison is such a fucking big body. You have to be honest with him in regards to defence.
So to be able to have a guy that comes through as a 5'8" and a talented ball player, and then for him to turn into the absolute brick shithouse that he has, it's a dangerous combo on your side.
Yeah.
He's like, the way we speak of Cam Murray and Isaiah Yeo in their ball playing, Madison, we know with that 5'8" background, he can do that, and he's good enough. He's got all the attributes to get to their level. So this time next year, we could have him right up there with the best locks in the game. And I remember sort of the start of the year, we were chatting about, Maddo better on an edge as a middle, and I for one was sort of like, oh, he's such a good line runner out wide. I like him on the edge. But now that we're just seeing this ball playing lock become so important, he's a lock. And geez, he's good at it.
Far out. And he must be a nightmare defence because he's so fucking big. Like, compared to the other locks in the comp, he is just massive. Also, I want to give a shout out to Will Bensini. He's a guy that just flies under the radar. He's 19. Like, he's Suoli'i's age. He's the same group that Suoli'i came through. I thought he was outstanding, and I think he has been outstanding, especially in defence. Like, his contact, the fact that he's, like, already got his man strength. He's only going to get better, which is crazy. Now, when you look at the stats, he made 23 tackles. Now, think about this. Brown made 7, Blake made 4, Opacek made 4, Sivo made 2, Gutho made 4. He made 23 tackles and only missed 2 on the edge. And I think that that's where the game wasn't won or lost there, but I think a lot of the times where Raiders would have found space and got those points, Pensini shut that down. And it's almost like they got frustrated. Like, usually a centre is going to miss these tackles eventually when we spin it wide, and Pensini just didn't. Like, he literally just didn't. Ran for over 100 metres. He got a try. I think that a lot of people are sleeping on Will Pensini, and I think that he's probably going to play for Tonga, I think he's one of the better young outside backs coming through. And when he starts hitting that 23, 24, 25 age, when he gets that man strength, he's going to be a massive problem.
And like, he was good on the weekend, but even the week before that against Penrith, like, he was marking up against that left edge, which is unbelievable. None of their points came down that edge. They all came on the other side of Brian To'o. And I mean, like, the other thing about the position that Will finds himself in is that he's got Wonga Blake outside him who, you know, historically, he can make some poor decisions on that edge. So it's put even more pressure on him, and I think he's handled it all sensationally well.
Yeah. He's just flying under the radar. And it's strange to me that a 19-year-old centre that's now in his second year of first grade and basically in his second finals. And also, if I remember correctly, wasn't it him that made the big play on Bradman Best last year to get them through against the Knights?
Yep.
And Bradman Best was almost in Origin talks. And Pensini won that battle, and he won it well. So, look, I think he's flying under the radar, and I think he's a fucking great player. Just quickly, Tom Opacek, is that how you say it? Anyway, bit of an injury cloud. I actually think this is a bit concerning for the Cowboys because I think that both Will Pensini and Opacek make up for a lot of Sivo and Wonga Blake's deficiencies in defence. The amount of times Wonga Blake or Sivo come flying in when they don't need to, it's quite alarming. Is this a concern for the Eels going into next game?
100%. It's a concern in their defence, but you've also brought it up on a number of occasions, the important role that he plays in their attack. He runs the perfect line every time, Opacek, and that's what creates that space for Clint Gutherson out the back. But I agree with you. I think that the thing with Opacek is there's, you know, I could throw a dart into the NRL and probably hit a centre that's got more talent, but he is so reliable and he is so consistent. He's one of those guys you realise how good he is probably when he's not there, more so than when he is there. So, yeah, I think it'd be a serious worry. And if I was the North Queensland Cowboys and he's not there, it's something I would target.
I'll be going down that edge every day of the week. Yeah, look, outside, just a fucking absolutely fantastic performance by the Eels. And, I mean, we're going to do a quick preview of the two games because obviously we've got more time. So we'll talk more about their hopes against the Cowboys. But another guy I want to talk about, Niokore, I think, you know, he goes about his business. He scored 2 tries. Like, I think he's going to be a bit of a loss for the Eels. I really do. He's a miss to fix it. He ended up, he went into the centres, I think, when Opacek was injured, played really well there. Did he play centres for the Kiwis as well?
Yeah.
He has, yeah.
He went really well there then.
I think he'll be a starting centre for the Kiwis.
Yeah. I think he's a great buy for the Warriors. I really, really do. It's just a matter of can the Warriors system get the best out of him, but I think the Eels are going to miss him.
I don't think there's any doubt that at some point next year there will be a time where Parramatta has injuries and you'll sit there and go, fuck, Niokore would be handy right now. He's exactly what they need in this moment.
And he fills so many gaps. And he doesn't, you know, a lot of the time when you say fill gaps, it's like, oh, they just go on and get the job done. But he actually impacts games.
Well, next week, if Opacek is out, he could start at centre.
I reckon you put him there.
Because the alternative is you're tinkering too much with your back line and you're going Wonga Blake back to centre, Simonson on the wing, which there's just a lot of moving parts there. So I think it probably got to be an Niokore at centre.
I think it has to be. I think you just think defence first.
Especially defensively in a prelim final, like it just makes sense.
Because like the other option is Wonga Blake there, and who would go on the wing? Like
it'd be Simonson.
You bring in
Simonson, and that scares me.
So then you're causing issues on both sides.
Yeah, and also like Wonga Blake at centre, like we've seen that, and unfortunately defensively he makes
against Nathan Cleary and Critter.
Yeah, tough. Well, Cowboy, as in we saw it against Nathan Cleary.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, Cowboys. Still, you'd have to mark what Townsend, Hiku, Nanai.
Yeah, fuck, doesn't get easier.
Yeah,
Holmes or fucking anyone.
Didn't he play centre for the first half of last year anyway? And he was
Wonga.
Niokore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It was
great.
quite good.
He
Yeah.
was their best.
Well,
back
I
every
wanted
week,
him to stay there when it was happening. I was like, I think he should stay there. But anyway,
Imagine if Brad Arthur came out and put Dylan Brown to centre and Jake to half.
holy moly, mate. There'd be riots. There would be riots in Parramatta. There would be fucking riots. So incredible win for the Eels. And, you know, I love the Cinderella story of the Cowboys, but at the same time, like, you know, the Para Eels, they've been fighting for so long.
These bloody Queenslanders, they turn on each other quickly.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about in regards to the Eels, boys?
Yeah, just quickly, you obviously mentioned like Jacob Arthur. I agree with you. I don't understand why they're running with such an out-and-out 7 on their bench. I think it just limits so much. And then you got to that game on the weekend, and Mitch Moses came off, and it was 15 minutes ago. They were up by 24, and they took Arthur off to put like. And I don't want to go too harsh on Jacob Arthur because people like to take advantage of the fact he's the coach's son, but. Like, if you don't trust him in that moment there to get you home, up by 24 with 15 to go, and he can't cover hooker, he can't cover any other position, I don't understand why they are carrying him on the bench.
The decision to put Moses back on the field,
It's ludicrous.
that makes it blows my mind that you would risk a guy that's already debatable whether he should be there or not, goes back out on the field against an angry Raiders pack when the game was over. It was over. And you've got Arthur there, even though I think that, like, take away his name. It honestly has nothing to do with the fact that he's the coach's son. It has everything to do with he is a specific 7. Even if you had Sam Walker maybe. I mean, I know Sam can maybe play a bit of hooker, but even Sam Walker I probably wouldn't put on the bench as a specific 7. Like, I'm trying to think of another young 7 that's coming through that can only just play 7. So
there aren't many of those guys around anymore. Jacob Arthur is a halfback and nothing else.
Yeah, and so
A good example would be how Ilias is South's halfback, but last year they ran with Taff because he's more versatile.
And so, look, maybe I would put Sam Walker on the bench, but the point I'm trying to make is like it does nothing to do with Jacob Arthur and his ability at all. It's just the nature of like the fact that the multiple positions that he can't play. So, look, it looks like he's going to stick with it. I'd assume that it's going to be the same next week, but I agree. It's a very surprising decision, and what makes it even more surprising is like when Moses did go off and you had the opportunity to give him some minutes. Anyway, outside of that though, let's not dampen the mood for the Eels. Great win, incredible win. Now on to the Sharkies versus the Rabbitohs. Wow. This is a really interesting game because this completion rate from both teams was terrible. But the Rabbitohs magic, they just have it. They got the magic. They got the superstars to get the job done. Firstly, I want to say this. We've already kind of said this, but I want to say it again. Lockie Ilias and the decision to keep him, it's a home run. The jury is no longer out as to whether it was the right call. They've made a prelim. It's a win-win situation. Reynolds to the Broncos was a good thing for the Broncos, but Ilias to the Rabbitohs, I think there's a lot of people, including myself, that were absolutely wrong. The Rabbitohs, they made a decision. They stuck with it. It was absolutely the right decision, and they deserve all the praise for making it'd probably be one of the toughest decisions they've ever made. Like, Reynolds is a legend of the Rabbitohs, and they made that tough decision for the future of their club, and they deserve all the praise that they're going to get. I was wrong. It's the right call. Ilias's future is fucking incredible in my eyes at the moment.
Yeah, I was very high on Ilias, and I sort of said last year I think he could be the halfback for 10 years, but there's not a hope in hell I would have made that decision last year. No way. There's no way that I would have let Adam Reynolds go to back in a young halfback in this competition. And mate, outside of the Rabbitohs, look at every other team that have been in a similar boat like that. That decision's been proven to be the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in this situation, and the Bunnies inside their 4 walls, as they should, they knew better than anyone else, and they've nailed it.
Absolutely knocked it out of the park. Yep. And as well, what's crazy is it hasn't been smooth sailing. Like, he didn't come in and set the world alight. He got hooked. And yet, it's amazing. It's such a ballsy call, and it was the right call. And massive congratulations to Demetrio, to Ilias, and all of the admin at South, because proved a lot of people wrong, including myself. What do you reckon, Timmy?
Yeah, it has been absolute bang on decision, and I like if they do hold Reynolds, it's probably a similar result in there. You know, there's every chance they're sitting in a prelim final. Maybe they had a better regular season, might have finished top 4. But the fact is they're there with Ilias, and just as a long-term decision, you know, even if they do get knocked out this week against the Panthers, it's like, geez, they're looking good down the track by making that decision, because we spoke before about Latrell and the money that he'll command, and, you know, do they hold everyone in this side with him on that money? Well, the fact is there that with Cookie there, Cody Walker both commanding big money, Cam Murray, Ilias is what's allowing them to be together right now, because he would be on bugger all money. If that's Adam Reynolds, well, they'd be sitting there looking at next year going, geez, some things are going to change here.
Someone's going.
Yeah. So
it's
Ilias...
It's a great point. Yeah, it's a really, really good point. Like, it's masterful roster management. Because and Ilias is just re-signed too. So, and if the fact that they can get Ilias and also get Trell, I think Cody Walker will 100% follow suit. They make a prelim, let's say in a crazy world where they make the GF, then you can go to Cook and say, look, mate, like Cook and Walker, and say, look, you maybe could get a lot more somewhere else, or a bit more somewhere else. But we're playing for premierships at this club right now, and Ilias will be in his second year next year. And what's really impressive about the Rabbitohs is I still think that they've got room for a bit of recruitment in the outside backs and maybe even forwards. So, fuck, what a year from the Rabbitohs. What a year. I have to be honest, like, I thought at the start of the year, if they make the 8, that's a win. They made the prelim. Amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat with Reynolds and Ilias, and I probably held the opinion of Reynolds up until pretty recently, especially after the Dragons game. I've never been more thrilled as a Rabbitohs fan to be just completely wrong, and it shows why that like the people in their positions are making those positions, because they are some really, really smart decisions that have been made. And I think a majority of Rabbitohs fans, like, were all pretty much thinking the same thing at the start of the year and the first half of this year. And Lachie Ilias is a young kid who would have been extremely aware of the noise, and to be a halfback of such a team that just came from a grand final, it's such a credit to him. And I was extremely stoked to see, and again, I've never been happier to be proven wrong about something, and I'm so happy for Ilias. He looks like he's the happy-go-lucky person as well around the club, but I was super stoked. I went to the Rabbitohs end of season launch, and there were only 2 standing ovations of the night. One of them was George Piggins coming to his first ever presentation to present the award, and the other one was Lachie Ilias winning Rookie of the Year. The whole theatre, everyone stood up and applauded him for winning that award, and like, he was obviously going to win it, but it's one of the biggest jobs in the history of the club to replace Adam Reynolds in the circumstances that happened. So congratulations, nice. Lachlan.
Yeah, and it's well deserved. Fuck, what an incredible year.
Just on him as well, like, and he's going to be playing for Greece in the World Cup, and he's one of their very few first-grade guys. Like, this will be a good opportunity for him to also just, that team will be his for those 6 or 7 weeks. And I'm not expecting them to put a dint in the World Cup or anything, but I do remember, you know, the last World Cup, Mitch Moses took on that Lebanon side and made it his. And I thought he took so much confidence from that World Cup where he really owned that footy side. Like, the next few weeks for Ilias coming out of this South system where he's sort of, you know, he's probably 4th or 5th down the pecking order as far as their spine and everything goes. For him to go in there for a few weeks and really have a chance to be the main ball player in the side, I think that'll be good for him as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely can't hurt. And you're right, Mitch Moses at Lebanon, I think the work with Freddie and that whole trip, he definitely did come back a bit more mature.
Definitely, yeah.
Now, on to the Rabbitohs game. We'll talk about Rabbitohs first. They were just too slick in attack. And, you know, some of their defence was really good as well, but just their attack and ability to... I mean, they scored on their first tackle on the Sharks line. And I wrote, like, in my talking points, like, that is danger signs for the Sharkies. The fact that... And also, it wasn't on the edge. It was one off the ruck. Yeah. And so, yeah, Rabbitohs, their 5th prelim in a row. To do what they're doing, Latrell Mitchell, 12 kicks in a row that he's gotten in finals footy. You know, I just thought, again, the interesting thing about the Rabbitohs is, like, when I look at that forward pack, you have to remember this was out without Tom Burgess. He's supposed to be their big dog. Now, Totola has obviously taken that mantle. But when you look at that forward pack and you compare it to, say, the Eels or, Roosters, you go, on paper it's a little bit light. But then you go out and watch them play and they just work as a unit so well. I want to give a quick shout out to, I think Arrow's been really good. Hopefully he's good to go next week. But Hame Sele, I think he's been so fucking good these last few weeks. And every time they have to bring off their main guy like a Totola or Nichols, they don't miss a beat with Sele coming on the field. And I mean, there'd be a lot of people that don't even know Sele is an NRL player. And yet he's impacting games every time he gets on the field. And he's only going to get better. I'd assume he's relatively young. And we've got to talk about him, my main man, Cameron Murray. Holy fuck. What a game. What a game by Cam Murray. He had a try assist, 147 metres, 5 tackle breaks, a line break assist, 37 tackles, 1 missed. At 23 years old, he was asked to take over the most historied club in the NRL. 23 years old. In the same team as 3 Origin players in Cody Walker, Damien Cook, Latrell Mitchell. He takes it over in a year they lost Gagai, they lost Bennett, rookie coach, rookie 7, and they have not missed a beat. He deserves all the praise in the world, and if he's not the next Australian captain after Teddy, I'll be pretty surprised. Like, this kid is something special, and on the weekend he was at his dynamite best.
Yeah, that try before halftime, just didn't run through anyone. Ran through Dale Finucane.
I know we've all missed tackles, but T. Wilton, what was he doing?
Yeah.
He wasn't even dummying, and he just... Anyway, you're right.
Yeah, but I think it also, as much as I thought the same thing, Wilton was caught out of position a little bit. The leg speed of Cam Murray can't be underappreciated.
Oh, for sure.
He's just incredible. I was looking at some stats before the game started, and Totola, he's run for over 170 metres. I think it was 11 times this year. They've won 10 of those games.
Wow.
He got 175 on the weekend, and they won again. So, obviously, Tom Burgess, and I would agree with that. He's probably the alpha of that pack. Without him, Totola was going to be key. And as much as it's not the Taumalolo 300 metres, the insane stuff, Totola's just so solid for them. That harm seller you mentioned, fuck.
He's been good, eh?
You see that first hit up he took? He went bang into contact, and he walked out of 3 tackles and then just looked for the offer. He did the same thing against the Chooks last week. He really took it to them. He's another one that I don't know how the Dragons let him go.
Think about this, though. What if I said to you last year, the Rabbitohs will win the second game of finals without Tom Burgess, without Adam Reynolds, without Dan Gagai, and without Wayne Bennett? You would have said, you're off your fucking head. They won't even make the 8. They are now in a prelim. It's amazing.
It's crazy.
It's amazing. I thought Cookie was much better as well this week. I thought he was just probing a little bit more than he usually does, and he was a bit more confident with his probing.
I think it was pretty evident last week that Damien Cook was underdone, for sure. So he looked much better in this game. And, I thought when Demetrio took him off, what was it, Matty, in the 50th minute last week, around that mark?
I think it was a little later, but I'll look it up.
I just remember thinking, you're mad. What are you doing? But I think it paid dividends this weekend, for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. Timmy, what do you think about the Rabbitohs?
Yeah, I can't believe we've gone 10, 15 minutes of Bunnies chat without any mention of the GOAT, Nosy Nichols. Nosy Nichols' first try scored. Big game player.
Oh, tell me about it.
Nichols. I've got a little side story about Nosy back in his NYC Toyota Cup days in the 20s with the Raiders, and I think the year was 2009, and a few decent future NRL players in that side, really good goal kickers would be down the line, and it was the last, I think it might have even been captain's run before their first game of the season, and boys were sitting around the sideline kicking a few goals, and old Nosy's put the ball on the tee from the left-hand touchline. Bang, 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 3 on the trot over the black dot, just nailed them all. Andrew McFadden was coaching them at the time, and he said, you know what, stuff it. I've seen enough. And he gave him the goal-kicking duties.
No way.
There was no ability in it at all. He's just fluked 3 of the best kicks you'll ever go. So he went out and kicked for the Raiders 20s in game 1 of the season. safe to say he hasn't kicked since.
The great Mark Nichols. Oh, fuck. How funny is that? 3 from the sideline, gets a gig. I think he'll be missed as well. He's a real good. He's like a real good salary cap player, and what I mean by that is like you're not breaking the bank for him. But this is a guy that not only this year has he stepped up in finals. Last year he stepped up in finals, but he was incredible last year. He ran for like 200 metres in a prelim, I think.
And this is where credit to the coach, because normally he's a classic guy that'll play mad under Wayne Bennett.
Yeah,
but no one else will be able to get it out of him. All of a sudden, Demetrio, like, mate, you go through that pack. Toller's improved out of sight. Mark Nichols has improved. Jai Arrow's been fantastic this year. Coleman Tungi's turned into a premier back rower. Cam Murray's managed that. Somehow he managed to get Cam Murray to a new level as well. Every single forward has improved after Wayne Bennett has left, which has been unheard of throughout history.
It's a really good point. I mean, you could argue the only one that's, and he's been injured, but like Tom Burgess, you'd say is the only one that hasn't, and he's the one where you would think would stay consistent because he's the big dog. I'm not saying he's had bad one at all. Like I'm just saying, like
I reckon it's probably been his second best season after last
year.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's still been great.
He's still been great, but I'm saying like I agree with your point. Everyone has improved. Like Totola has just exploded. Like he is taking on the biggest packs and winning them, winning every battle. Shout out to my main man Campbell Graham. He might be he might become my favourite player. Seriously, his runs are different to everyone else's runs because he always takes the shittest hit-ups. And every time he takes those hit-ups, I'm going, he's about to get dominated. Like, there's no way those front rowers aren't going to belt the fuck out of that big, gangly, sexual being that is Campbell Graham. And he just fucking punches through the line every time.
And he broke his ribs against the Roosters. Broke a rib against the Roosters. So he's been playing with a broken rib for 2 weeks.
Campbell Graham, big sexy. Holy shit. So he's playing with broken ribs and he's running like that. That doesn't make sense. Big stretch.
Mate, and I think like people forget as well how young Campbell Graham is. Like, what is he, Matt? 22? 23, so pretty young. And mate, he was a winger coming through the grades the entire time. He's been changed to centre 2 years ago. Like, I think what he's done has been incredible, Campbell Graham, and I really hope the rep duties aren't far away for him.
I honestly, look, I understand he has to continue form for sure, but I hope that this year has proven that, okay, he may not have the highlights of a Stags or a Critter, but he has to be the next specialist centre in line. Outside of, I understand Whiten and Burton. Look, the line is massive because we've got these incredible players that can play centre. But if you're looking for I just think that for too long, his name isn't thrown in the conversation. I think anyone that watches rugby league now, if you don't put him in the conversation next year, let's say there's an injury or whatever, then I don't think you clearly aren't watching Campbell Graham, because if you watch any Rabbitohs game play, he is one of the best players on the field, and it would be a travesty if he doesn't wear that blue jersey by the end of his career. And I understand the line is long, the Whiten, the Burton, Latrell, I get all that, but he deserves to play in Origin. He is so fucking good. He's so consistent. The amount of times where I think, they're going to break the line, like it's a crazy play that's been put on his edge, and he just shuts the play down.
Good.
Boom. Every single time, it's just dead in the water. He was outstanding. I want to give a shout out to Isaiah Tass. Like, where did he come from? Like, I know we predicted it because we were calling for him to start in the centres, but I didn't think he'd be this consistent. Like, he is a consistent good for centre, impacting the game. Another game where he runs over 150 metres, 167 metres, 11 tackles, only 2 misses in the centre. That's a fucking good knock. Another guy, Tane Milne. When he came into the grade this year, I know he'd played a bit other places. I was like, I just don't think he's a first grader. I think he's going to float in and out. He's been arguably their best outside back the last few weeks. And again, credit to Demetrio, getting the best out of these players. Like, and what I love about Milne is like he's a player that oppositions would hate because he's super fucking aggressive. But if he plays for your side, you love that shit.
You know what, on him, and Matt will be able to shed a bit more light on this, but he was pretty ordinary in the back line through a lot of this season. From what I saw, the Bunnies had made a decision to turn him into a middle forward, or middle or edge. because he went back to New South Wales Cup and he was playing as a starting lock for them. And then did he not play a bit in the middle off the bench as a forward again later on this season?
Yep.
So they nearly conceded, we see your future as a forward, and now he's coming out doing this.
Mate, it's happened at every club he's ever been at. He starts as a centre winger, and then eventually they go, fuck it, you're too big, you're too strong, we'll move into the back row. Like he played lock for Fiji in the middle of the year. Oh, I reckon there's a good chance he'll be in the pack for Fiji again.
Oh, I remember we were talking. I was saying,
he looked good.
We were like, fuck, he should probably play lock because he was struggling on the edge.
He was the same at the Warriors. He was playing reserve grade in the back row for them, and he was absolutely whacking people. He's a good guy to have in your side. Just on Isaiah Tass as well. Like we praised him all off season, said he's the guy to pick. And I'll be honest with you, when he came in 3 weeks later, I was like, fuck, might have got this one wrong. I don't know if he's up for it just yet. And honestly, ever since I've had those thoughts, he has been sensational for them.
So good.
Yeah.
Like, well, I didn't know he'd be good, but I was confident he would be good because the only problem I had with him was his error count. I think we spoke about it. Yeah. But his ball running, his contact, his strength, his even his delicate tip-ons and that was really good. But again, I did not predict that he would be this good and this consistent.
And it should also be noted that like the reason why we spoke about him, because we'd seen him play Queensland Cup, we'd sat here and we watched some of those highlights. They were all on the right side.
Yeah,
I wanted Campbell Graham at left centre and him at right.
Yeah, it's true. We talked about that
quite
a
lot.
lot.
Left,
Just quickly on Tane Milne, I hope I'm saying it right. In the last 3 games, he scored 4 tries and had 5 line breaks. Fuck. And then we're talking Roosters, Sharks. We're not talking fucking. So he's been, really, really good.
It was funny in that game. Tane was marking Lockie Miller. Their partners both work together.
Oh, really? That's funny. Fucking hell. We'll talk about Trell. Trell's basically, it seems like Trell's gone, okay, you want me to be the villain? I'll be the villain.
That'll be the best one you've seen.
Yeah, and I'll just keep nailing. His conversions, I swear, I feel like every conversion's from the sideline for him, and he just nails it every time. Talk about, if you ever wanted an example of why stats aren't the be-all and end-all, and don't get me wrong, we read stats on this. They're a good indication. They really are. But if there's one player that breaks that mould where you can't look at the stats, it's Latrell Mitchell. You have to watch the games to see what this guy does on the field. You know what I thought was crazy, if you want to see how strong he is? I know he dropped the ball. It was because Ramian defended really well. But Jesse Ramian jams in. Latrell drops the ball, but he's so fucking strong, he puts Ramian on the ground, and then he lazily throws out another arm and fends. Who was that? Someone that ran across? But I just thought, Ramian is one of the fucking strongest centers in the comp, bar none. Latrell is so strong that even when he's dropping a ball, he can bump blokes and then throw out a lazy fend and fend someone else off. Really, really exciting times. We haven't even spoken about Keon. His hands for the try with Latrell was wild.
For rugby league purists, that has to be one of your favourite tries of the season, doesn't it?
That was amazing. We're talking about a 110 kilo, 23-year-old edge back row, no look passing, but not no look passing to a guy that is already there ready to get the ball. No look passing into space, predicting that the guy behind him is going to be there. That's amazing.
I thought that try was incredible. Like that, that play started on the other side of the post. Like, I think it's fair to say the ball spent longer in the air than in hands.
It was amazing.
That was impossible to defend.
You can't defend that. You cannot possibly defend that. It was so impressive, and I don't know. It sort of looked like to me like it's not like it was a set play. I just think that it was that they all just sensed that was on, and that it's a sign of a good football team.
And again, I think a guy like Keon is we're still not at his potential. I still think there's more for him to give. And it's not because he's lazy or anything at all. I just think that a guy as talented as him, he's a big, strong ball runner. When he gets put in even better positions on the edge there, because a lot of the time, edge back rowers for Rabbitohs are really line runners and they clean up a lot. Think about it. Over the last few years, have the edges really been, say, similar to a Kick-Ow or even a Roosters Angus Crichton? Not really the same. Now, don't get me wrong, Keon has done some pretty amazing things. I still think that there's going to be times when they bring Keon into the game and we're going to see even more from him. That's how good I think the kid is.
Just on that, you talk about like those edge back rowers. Like the Rabbitohs last year, Alex Johnson scored 30 tries on that wing. We know how dominant the left edge was. Jai Arrow was on that left edge. He scored 2 tries the entire season.
Yeah, because he's running the good lines that give him the space on the edge. And I know we've already shouted him out, but Jai Arrow, I think that it's easily the best year since he's arrived, no doubt. And he just gets through so much work that doesn't get appreciated. His cleanup, his aggressiveness. I really hope he's okay next week. I really do. Anything else stood out for you guys?
What was it with Jai? Was it a groin injury, wasn't it?
Yeah. Brilliant. He said it'll be sweet, but didn't look good. But he said his facial was worse than the injury, but he's maybe just so fucking tough that he's just going to play through whatever. What
would you do if Jai's out? Who do you... Because you lost Havili as well, who I think he'll be a loss off the bench for you.
That's another guy, Havili. Like Demetrio, getting the best out of him. Like, when they signed Havili, I was like, what position are they signing him for? Like, maybe a backup hooker, but Cook's an 80-minute player. He's been fantastic. So look, Rabbitohs, what an incredible... Look, I mean, to be fair, though, their completion rate, they got to sort that out. Because if they may be the better attacking side than the Cowboys, but if there's one thing that I can be confident of, the Cowboys are going to complete at a high rate. Like, I'll be very surprised if the Cowboys complete at less than 80% at home in Townsville. If you go to Townsville, actually, well, I'll wait. We'll get to it, the preview. Anyway, anything else you guys want to talk about, the Rabbitohs?
No, as you just said there, mate, I think that if they put out that same performance that they did the other night, I think that they could be in trouble, though. We've got to see improvement out of them.
Yeah. Oh, not against Cowboys.
Yeah, it's against
fucking
Penrith. So that's going to be a huge
even worse.
test for we'll get to a preview.
Yeah, if they play like that but complete high, then they can really worry the Panthers. Okay, now to the Sharkies. Look, I tipped the Sharkies because I just thought that they would bounce back from last week. I thought that they had the best goal line defence all season long. I thought that, their completion rate, I think, was around 80%. So I thought that they were going to bring that into this game, and I thought they would just suffocate the Rabbitohs. But I will say, I think at the start of finals footy, when I said that I was unsure about the Sharkies because I just didn't know if they had that extra gear in them to go to that next level, I think that has kind of come true. I also think, at the start of the year when I said they will have a great year, but I don't know if they're going to have long enough to pull it all together to fight for a premiership. I think we saw that evidence on the weekend. I will say, though, in their defence, they lost Talakai, who is so important to their game and does not get enough appreciation. And they also lost Royce Hunt. And who else? They lost another player too, didn't they? Anyway, Royce Hunt and Talakai are big losses. I think also the decision to select Tracy and Miller on the same edge, I think 2 small bodies was not a good idea. And also not only 2 small bodies, but 2 players that haven't really played in those positions much all year. Now, Connor Tracy's played a little bit, but not a lot. So the year is still a very successful year for the Sharkies. But I do think that they're still 1 or 2 recruitments away from challenging for a premiership. And my concern about could they go to that next level in finals footy, I think that kind of came true. What do you think, Guru?
Yeah, I think, as you said, the selection of the 2 smaller bodies, especially when you're going up against Campbell Graham and Tane, that was always like 2 big bodies
fucking
there.
Big boys.
Very hard to handle. And yeah, mate, I was obviously reasonably high on the Sharkies heading into the finals, and as much as it's an if and a but, fuck that extra time game against the Cowboys.
Took it out of them.
But I reckon the whole narrative is flipped if they win that. All of a sudden, they're at home with a 2-week prep coming up against, who would they be playing? The Parramatta Eels. Coming off a few games, everything changes. But that's finals footy. You got to stand up and you got to deliver in those moments. The Cowboys did. Just on the Sharkies, throughout the season, they conceded an average of 15 points per game. In the last 2 finals games, they've conceded 70.
Yeah, and that was my point in regards to the finals footy. And Cam Smith has said it on our show numerous times. He's like, it's a different season. It's not the same. It is a different kettle of fish. It's a different style of footy. Everything is different. And that was my concern with the Sharkies, is like, could they go up a gear with finals footy? And I think they kind of proved that they can't. They didn't. They didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, as I said, I think that if they would have won that first game, for example, it's a completely different story. But at the end of the day, you conceded 30 points in a final.
At home.
So that's, so that's, you do got a little bit unlucky at the end, but you made your own bed throughout the rest of the game anyway.
Timmy, what do you think about the Sharkies?
Yeah, I was so disappointed that Sifa was out because it just changed the complexion of this game so much. I can pretty well guarantee, I think, that if Sifa plays, that this scoreline is a lot closer. And that's not necessarily because Sifa is a freak. He's important to this team. You know, he's not everything. He's a centre at the end of the day, not the most prolific role on the field, but just the fact that, and you already touched on it, Kempy, having Miller and Tracy there on that left edge, they just got torn apart. Just about everything good the Bunnies did was down their right edge of Milne and Campbell-Graham. Now we look at this Bunnies team who nearly their entire attack is structured around getting it to that left edge and stripping them and getting Alex Johnson out wide. They've obviously seen that right edge of the Sharks, and again, great coaching for Dimitri and gone, that's the edge we need to target. And they've had so much success down there. If Sifa's there, it means that Tracy stays on the wing. There's no Lockie Miller, who, you know, it's not on him that they lost it in this manner, but there was just a lot of changes out wide, and it really did, it cost them the game, among other things, but you know, I don't like dwelling on the ifs and buts of if Sifa played, but it just would have changed so much. And then it annoyed me a little bit. One of my very few criticisms of Craig Fitzgibbons is just chops and changes his wingers, like their edges all the time between. I know Mulitalo's gone different edges and Katoa got injured, but just keeps changing them. And like Mulitalo the last 3 weeks, I think he's gone one side to the other side to the other side, and it just hurts this cohesion. And when you build these combinations between your centres, your back rowers, your wingers, your halves, it just throws you out of whack, and I think they really got exposed on the weekend.
So do you think that they were more worried about the Rabbitohs' strong left edge, and that's why they put...
I don't know why they switched Mulitalo over again, because he played on the right side the week before, and then he played... Sorry, I keep getting confused, but yeah.
He was on the right yesterday, which is the Rabbitohs left. He was
on the right. So he played left the week before, and I don't know why he keeps shopping and changing them.
And look, in fairness to the Sharkies, they're also missing Katoa as well. Kennedy is only in his second game back from an 8-week injury or 6 to 8 week injury. So look, there are reasons to look at and go, but the one thing, and we spoke about it in regards to, so the last game of the year, they played the Doggies.
Yes.
They played the Doggies, and they completed it like fucking, I don't know, something really poor.
64%.
64%. The Cowboys played the Panthers reserve grade side, and they completed it 80+%. And that to me was the warning sign of the Cowboys have standards that they refuse to budge on. The Sharkies, I mean, I'm sure they work towards that, but they came into the biggest game of the year and had a 62% completion rate, and you are never going to win a game at 62% completion rate unless you have crazy superstars that can just pull things out of their ass. Now, Rabbitohs are notorious for, having poor completion rates, at stages, and they have these superstars and get them out of it. Whereas the Sharkies, as I said, incredible year, but it's almost like the best thing that can happen for them though, because now they go into next off-season going, we still got a long way to go. Whereas if let's say they beat the Cowboys by 2 points and then they lose in a prelim, is it as much of a negative finish as, say, bouncing out 2 games in a row? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I wonder whether this will kind of light a fire under them to realise we're actually quite a ways away from being a premiership threat.
I was just running through some numbers that are in front of me. So Talakai being out, just to show you how much of a loss he was. You had Tracy and you had Miller. They combined for 180 run metres between the two of them. Over the last 5 weeks, Sifa's averaged 200 run metres.
Wow.
They combined for 65 post-contact metres. Sifa has averaged 90 post-contact metres the last 5 weeks. So
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that people I think a lot of people get caught up in the stats, super coach, fantasy and all this sort of stuff when it comes to Talakai about him having these high ceilings. But
like this try assist and the tries rather than the actual.
Look at he's averaging 200 metres at centre. It is unbelievable the way that he's finished. Like he's averaging 200 metres at centre. I think he's had 2 line breaks in the last few weeks. Like it's not like he's also stacking himself up by running 50 metres on. They're tough carries.
Tough carries, yeah. Yeah, the hit-ups pretty much, all of them.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, look, Craig Fitzgibbon was quite a brutally honest assessment of the game. He basically said, you know who you are if you didn't defend kind of well, basically saying that they didn't meet the standards they'd set all year. I like that. It would have been very easy for Fitzgibbon to go in there and go, boys, we came second, and we got beaten. First 2 weeks, very easy to rest on the fact that they finished the whole year second. But clearly, Fitzgibbon already in his head is like, we want to win premierships. We don't come here to just finish second.
Yeah, I think the mindset shown in that press conference was very important. It's not as you said, it's not we're happy to be here. We've done well because we're the Sharks. It's we're here to win comps. We should be winning comps.
Yeah. Outside of that, I thought Nico tried his heart out, really, really tried to get some things going, but there just wasn't enough go forward for him or Moylan to really do anything. This is the metres of the forward pack. Rudolph, 94 metres, Brayley, 26, Hamilton Ueli, 75, Nikora, 45, Wade Graham, 57, and Finucane, 112. Very, very tough to get something going when you're just struggling to get go forward. Now, granted, Rabbitohs' defence was outstanding. Like their line speed was crazy. Shout out to Mulatalo, though. I just want to give him a massive rap. Mulatalo is such a deceptively good winger. I just don't think he gets the same raps as the best in the business. But I'd argue he's starting to become one of the best in the business. He's tall, he's a bit rangy. He doesn't look like, he's that strong, but he is super strong. He doesn't look like he's that fast, but he's fast. He doesn't look like, because he's so tall and rangy, does he have the skill set? Yes, he does. Mulatalo was outstanding on the weekend. He was really the shining light for me, and I can't wait to see him continue to develop as a winger.
151 metres from 9 runs in a team that was on the back foot the entire night.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they conceded. I don't think they conceded down that edge, which is the Bunnies' left edge, which is probably the best attacking edge in the NRL, which has just decimated teams all season. Now, I know I said that they did play down the other edge a little bit due to the change-up of personnel, but Mulatalo, a big part of that, they defended that edge. I think Cody Walker scored his 1 try, but again, that was sort of what's happening on the inside a little bit more.
Jesse Ramian, I think he's an outstanding year, like a really good year. I will say, though, that knock-on try was one of the biggest jokes I've ever seen. The one where Jesse Ramian taps the ball down and they say it was a knockback. In what world has that ever been a knockback?
If that ball would have bounced and he picked it up, it would have been a knock-on for all money.
He was facing the Rabbitohs. Like, when I see calls like that, and that's when I get my tinfoil hat on and I go, are you trying to keep them in the game? Because how in the world? You've got 2 touchies on either side. You've got the ref there. You've got the video ref as well. And that isn't a knock-on? In what stratosphere is that not a knock-on? And, again, you just don't want these calls ruining tight games. And I said it to him in a text. I said, do you reckon he gives that call as not a knock-on if it's a tight game? I don't think he does. How many times we see tries, there is 3 minutes of replays and we're going, get on with it. That was try confirmed after 1 replay. Anyway, it's so inconsistent. I don't understand it. The good thing is in both games, the right team won.
Sorry, just on the Sharks, just a stat I've just looked up. Since we changed from the McIntyre system in 11, they're only the second team to get bounced out straight sets, coming in the top 2.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that. I mean, it's a great stat. I just think that, okay, very disappointing they lost at home, but that was an epic encounter. It's not like they rolled into week 1 and just got bounced by a Cowboys side that, that
It's
was
a very different story if they just happen to kick the field
Yeah.
goal first.
Isn't it?
Oh, mate, it's
Jeez.
crazy, eh? Just 1-1 play.
Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I thought that from a few weeks ago. But I personally think if they would have kicked that field goal first, I'd probably back them in this week against Parramatta with a week off.
Really. I still back Parramatta, and I just think that they've got so much to play for. But I see what you mean, like the confidence and the momentum and all that kind of stuff. I will say, what's great, that they were 30 seconds away? Like Tamala, 30 seconds away, and they've got a home finals in a prelim.
And everything changes. The entire season is flipped on its head for Cronulla.
I will say, though, it's a really good learning lesson as well for them, though, like how important, A, that top 4 finish is, but B, also, getting that win. I know they thought it was important, but now as a squad that hasn't played that much finals footy, they really know the pain. They can go... I'm sure a lot of them will look back on that Cowboys game and go, that was it. That was the game that we could have changed a lot. So, yeah, I would say if they got beat 38-12 by the Rabbitohs and they had an 80% completion rate, you could be like, okay, beaten by the better side. I think the really disappointing thing for the Sharkies, it's the completion rate at 62% and the missed tackles as well.
And just to compound it, the Rabbitohs at half time, they were completing at 61% and they were up 18-0.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's fucking awful.
Do you think they just ran out of gas?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what explains it to me.
I personally think the Cowboys would have lost that the other night if the shoe was on the other foot as well.
So
yeah, that pack doesn't run out and no one runs over 100 metres except for Dale out of nowhere.
And also for them to get to the position where they are, they would have had a massive preseason, It's been a big year for the Sharkies. Yeah. So look, incredible season. The finals footy is just something they're going to have to work on. And I think that, again, that's just with the recruitment. For example, Fifita is obviously moving on. Wade Graham, he'd have a couple of years left maybe. And then they probably can go into the market and maybe recruit one or two that can give him that extra step.
Tolman's going as well.
Yeah, Tolman's going as well. Okay, that is the review done. Now we're just going to do a quick preview of next week, boys. You got any news or not? Got a preview in you?
Yeah, got a preview.
Yeah, sweet. Just don't want you to fall asleep on me in the middle of it. Okay, we're going to go Cowboys versus the Eels. Cowboys are a $1.71 favourite, which is really, really interesting. I'd assume Opacek will probably not play. If you're doing your hammy, you're probably done. Cowboys, I'd assume, are probably 1-17, the same as the thing that I can remember. Now, how do we see this game playing out? Timmy, how do you see it playing out?
I like the Eels. I thought they were outstanding on the weekend. I don't know if... We've said all season, can Parramatta string games together to win a competition? I think they had their sort of bit of a blip in week 1 of the finals against Penrith. Now that they've made it to a prelim final, they had a soft game against the Raiders as far as NRL semi-finals go. They've got through to that pretty well. If you can't get up for a prelim final, something is wrong. And I don't think anything is wrong with the Eels at the moment. I think they're a unified team both on and off the field. I think they'll get up for it, and I think they're going to have way too much firepower through the pack. I think I don't know if they can. I don't think they'll blow them off the park like they did the Raiders. They won't because the Cowboys have had the week off. They're at home in Townsville, but that footy that Parramatta played was outstanding, and you touched on it earlier. But I think Parramatta could be the only side that can beat Penrith, and I think Parramatta will be too good for them off the back of that middle dominance, and then off that the back line they're just humming.
I will say it feels good. I was copping shit all year about the Eels and saying they're not a chance. Do we all agree if you make a prelim, you're a premiership threat? Is that fair?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, if you would like to leave your apology down in the comments section, I'm okay with that. If you'd like to say, hey, sorry for putting shit on you for staying loyal to the Eels. All jokes aside, I personally think it's right there for the Eels. It's now or fucking never. This is the game of the last 20 years for them. They have everything to play for. The grand final is right there. Even if they go into the grand final and lose to Penrith, which I think most people think they probably will, even though I think they'll give it a shake. Does it lift the hoodoo off their back? No. But I tell you what, it eases a lot of pressure as the club. Look, I think the Cowboys, although very disciplined, very tough, I just think the Eels are going to have too much firepower through the middle of the park. And the Cowboys did leak 30 points. That is concerning. So I think the Eels get the job done, but I think it's going to be a very tight affair. What do you think, Guru?
I'm actually going to go the other way. I think the Cowboys might get them at home.
Yep.
I think that 2 weeks off is going to be incredibly important. I think that, as you said there, last week wasn't a overly tough matchup for Parramatta. I think that could hinder them, to be honest with you. They finished last week throwing the ball around, playing very free-flowing footy. I think that might hinder them come next week. So I think the Cowboys are going to be a very, very different prospect. They'll be up for it at home. The crowd will be going nuts up there. Cowboys essentially full strength. And I think Todd Payten's proven how much of a good coach he is this year. And if you give good coaches 2 weeks to prepare, I think in the back of his mind he would have probably known he's been playing the Eels for the last 2 weeks. I think $1.70 is fair for the Cowboys. I really do.
Yeah. Wow. Who you got?
I got Parramatta, but I want to ask you guys a question. So the Cowboys pumped the Eels 35-4 earlier in the year in Darwin, so similar conditions. And I think that was the Cowboys' real breakout game. It was in round 8. Now, do you think that result helps the Cowboys' confidence more, or do you reckon it helps with the Eels' lessons learned more?
Yeah, I don't think if your argument is the heat could affect things for the Eels, that's fair because it is fucking hot up there.
31 degrees and sunny on Friday.
Yeah. So if that's the question, whether the heat is an issue, because not only is it the heat, the ball's slipperier, the humidity, everything kind of changes in such heat. But I don't think it has any, in regards to the actual game, I don't think it has any bearing on, there's been so many games between now and then.
That was also one of the shit fight games where they played Dylan Brown at centre too.
And a lot of the Eels went down sick that week as well, a lot of the Eels players. It's going to be interesting. Cowboys v the Eels, far out. Imagine if Todd Payten takes a team from 15th to a grand final. Would that be like one of the best turnarounds we've ever seen?
For sure.
I think Penrith in 03?
Penrith 03, Tigers 05. That'd all be. You have to throw this Cowboys side in.
Were they like a rookie coach essentially?
No, but yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, they both had pretty damn experienced coaches.
Yeah, far out. Where will the battle be won? I think I would probably say the outside back of the Cowboys. They've got the up there. I think Scotty Drinkwater and Gutho probably cancel each other out. Where Scotty Drinkwater is a little bit more creative, I would say Gutho maybe has a bit better defence. I think in the forward pack, the Eels have the edge. And it's going to be... If the Eels are to win, it's through the forward pack. We say that every single week, but the problem for the Eels is the Cowboys are so disciplined through the middle there. They're so disciplined. If you're going to score, you have to earn it usually. But that 30 points it's what scares me. Where do you think the difference is for the Cowboys?
I agree with you. They obviously conceded 30 points in their last game. For me, I always say it. Shark Park is just a different kettle of fucking fish. You go there and you show up and it's like a black hole for good rugby league. I think the Cowboys going back up home, I think their forwards having, 2 weeks off here, I think they're going to be really, really up for this one. I think obviously the keys are Taumalo and Ruben Cotter. The meters they got through against the Sharkies and just their leg speed through the middle has just been incredible this year. I don't know. As you guys know, I've said it all, I just don't trust Parramatta. I can't do it. And you know what? They were unbelievable last week. There's no doubt about it. But I really did think the Canberra Raiders, they didn't even come close to matching it with them in the middle. It wasn't even a fair contest, realistically. So I think the Cowboys will be completely different, and I think that this will be the game where if he hasn't already, Chad Townsend's going to pay for himself.
Where do you think that they have that difference, though? You know what I mean? Do you think it's, is it Scotty Drinkwater's creativity?
I think on paper, Parramatta's got the better side, but I think that 2 weeks to prepare and coming in fresh at home, I think the home ground is their major advantage there by a mile.
The heat, do you think, as well?
The heat as well, like 31 degrees, that's a nightmare.
Fucking so hot.
It's so hot.
Playing footy too. Oh, so tough.
And it's, the Cowboys are just so used to that. And like Parramatta, I probably have got a better side on paper, but as far as the forward pack goes, to have Nanai on one edge, Leilua on the other side, like the Cowboys can beat you in so many ways as well. Like I've probably been the absolute king of underestimating the Cowboys this year, and I think I'm done with it. It's funny though, if you said to me who's got the better chance to beat Penrith, I say Parramatta by a mile. Yeah. But I just think that the Cowboys will get them this week.
Where do you think the Eels have the difference over the Cowboys?
Firstly, on the flip, I'm going through it now, this on short prep, but I don't see... I'm trying to make a case for the Cowboys. I think the big one is week off into a 31-degree game. Para, a few big weeks and a big end of the season to get into the top 4. It's been a long campaign for them. Cowboys will also be fresher. That heat's going to help a lot. The last 20 minutes of the game, they'll be feeling that big time, the Eels. But like you go through their side, I think nearly the entire pack, I think the Para almost win the head-to-head. And then you look at the spine, I think every position they win the head-to-head. Maybe they win a Val Holmes in the back line or something. It's a centre duel. But I just think stacking up numbers-wise, I think it's Para all day. Para-wise, I think it'll be too strong through the middle. I think they've got too much firepower on the edges. The more I look at it, the more I think unless that heat really gets to Para and they do run out of steam, I think Para can win it and cover the line.
Yeah.
On paper, though, Parramatta should have lost one game this year against Penrith. On paper, they're better than every other side. You can line them up.
But it matters now. They've got up when they've needed to, and they're doing it. I don't like...
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, even though the paper argument in regards to they've lost games that they shouldn't have, it still doesn't change the fact that on paper they are a better side. You know what I mean? Like, so it still plays a factor. I think that if they are to lose this, this is their best chance in the last 20 years to make a grand final, because they got put on the other side to Penrith. They got a Raiders game that was a relatively soft game for them. They got a Cowboys team who is relatively inexperienced in finals footy. Yes, it is away. If Eels don't make this grand final, they will look back on this and they will rue the day. Everything is set up for them. But I agree in regards to there is something to be said for 31 degrees and a whole week off. So if the Cowboys find themselves in the game with 20 to go, that's when I can see the Cowboys getting the win. So if I'm Peyton, I'm almost saying, boys, let's not worry about like the points or whatever. Let's just stay in it. Like, don't go looking for points. Don't, obviously go looking for points if we're getting beaten by that much. But let's just hang in the game to the 60th minute, because there is just, it's physically impossible for the Eels to be as prepared for that last 20 minutes as the Cowboys are. It is physically impossible.
It's funny you say best chance to make a GF in roughly 20 years, because as the narrative goes, their probably best chance since this was, if you don't include 09, was 2005 when they were in the prelim and they played the Cowboys and they were heavy favourites, and the Cowboys produced one of the upsets of the year, probably only second to the same upset that weekend when Tigers beat the Dragons. Cowboys dusted them 29-0. So it's just funny how it's all worked out, how they meet again in a prelim. Also, I went back and looked. The closest thing to best improvement would probably be Roosters 09 came last, and then in 2010 they made the grand final, and that was Brian Smith's first year at the Roosters, but Brian Smith was into his 27th year of coaching. So you'd probably give Toddy Payton the points if they win.
I will say, everything I just said, if there was one team, to your point, that could just rock up and get towed, it's fucking the Eels.
And I mean,
you know what I mean?
And like every final game they played the last few years, exactly what you just said, mate. You could have taped it and put it on again the last few years when they don't.
Yeah, so that is absolutely a factor. For example, I can't see Penrith going up there and just playing shit. They're a consistent side. Even the Roosters, I can't see them going up and just playing poorly.
And honestly, that's what worries me about how easy Parramatta did it against Canberra.
I just think that there is too much riding on this for these blokes. If they can't turn up for this, then fuck, what can they turn up for?
This is when they do these things, though. This is what they've done. This is what I've
They've
said
never
all
been.
year.
They've never been here though. They've never been here with the. This is the pinnacle of their roster, and it is, again, it's not an easy game at all. It's fucking tough as anything. But out of all the top 8, Cowboys and Sharks are the 2 teams that you would probably want to play, you know, a week before the grand final, because they're the 2 most inexperienced teams in finals footy. So, like, it's going to be a cracking game, though. A cracking game. And it is scary to think the Cowboys rested, 20 to go. Yeah, I cannot wait for it. But the Eels have just everything to play for. If the Cowboys win this game, it will be one of the greatest coaching feats I've ever witnessed personally. Like, again, there may have been 2005 and all that kind of stuff. But me personally, to see a Todd Payten that went from the Warriors to the Cowboys at the start of this season, his job was under pressure. Some people were calling for the sack. To get to a grand final, it'll be incredible.
You are right, though. Obviously, 05 was Tim Sheens, all the experience in the world. 03 was Johnny Lang, a heap of experience there as well. Like, man, it wasn't that long ago that Todd Payten left the Warriors, and I was sort of like, they'll be okay. They'll find someone else.
Yeah, like we weren't screaming, what a terrible loss. Like, oh my God, I can't be the Warriors, let him go.
Like, I think Todd Payten's applied for the Tigers coaching job twice.
Has he really?
I'm pretty sure. That's what I read the other day, yeah.
No.
He won a comp there 2015.
And he applied for the job.
Well, I think he was an assistant. I'm pretty sure he coached their Toyota Cup that won a couple of years
He was definitely in the running for their coaching.
And look, I'm not shocked because, how could they make that choice? I'm shocked because of what could have been. Because very easy for everyone now to say Todd Payten's a great coach. Last year, he was fucking the worst coach in history, and he's got to go. So I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying what could have been for the Tigers.
2012, the Tigers won the Toyota Cup, beat the Canberra Raiders head coach, Todd Payten.
If they've already gone that direction. That's what's surprising then is why? Because isn't Todd Payten off contract after next year?
I think so.
So why didn't the Tigers throw the fucking everything at him? Former club legend, can coach clearly. Maybe Payton's made it clear that he's going to be loyal to the Cowboys.
Let's not get no wise with the Tigers.
True.
I'm reading an article, and it's Daily Mail, so don't seriously. But it says here that Todd Payten snubbed an approach from Tim Sheens to replace Madge.
Oh, okay.
So he's probably
wants to stay loyal to Cowboys because Cowboys gave him a shot.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So the fair play to Tigers. It's good that they at least went after him because he clearly can coach. But what an incredible game! I cannot fucking wait for this game because both narratives I love. Cowboys in North Queensland. After everything that's happened this year for them, some really heartbreaking, devastating moments for the club. For them to be in a prelim, it's amazing. In the new stadium, amazing. But then you've got the Eels. It's just, I cannot fucking wait. Now, Panthers versus Rabbitohs. This is going to sound really boring. Look, Rabbitohs have a magic that you can't measure. You can't measure the magic. Sometimes it can just turn up and turn everything that's on its head. But the Penny Panthers, in my opinion right now, are just on a different level. And I would be very surprised if they lost to the Rabbitohs. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same, mate. I'd be shocked if they lost this one. In saying that, the Bunnies have either beaten them or competed with them in a lot of big games. Obviously, last year they beat them finals week 1. They were an intercept away from beating them in the GF. So the Bunnies will come into this one with a lot of confidence, but I cannot see a world where Penrith lose this game. But I couldn't see the Melbourne Storm losing this same game last year.
And it's as we've seen, it's become so... The game is different now. You get a head knock, you're gone for 15 minutes. So, touch wood, but Cleary gets their head knock. I mean, look at the Roosters-Rabbitohs game. They lost Crichton, Teddy. Their whole bench was decimated. What do you reckon, Timmy?
Yeah, with you boys. I've sort of said all year I didn't really see anyone beating Penrith to win the competition, and I don't think that's changed coming into this week. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see the Bunnies cause an upset and just be great to see. But after 3 years of Penrith dominance, but the Bunnies, their 4-pack has been very good. But if they don't get the ascendancy through the middle against this relentless Penrith side, I just don't see where that magic comes from. I don't see where Latrell injects himself into the game. So there's so much reliance on that. If Penrith do get the ascendancy through the middle, I don't think the Bunnies are going to have any avenue into this game. I think with Nathan Coo's kicking game, he's just going to pin them down in the back corner. Penrith are so relentless. They're just going to be perfect in everything they do. They'll make them work out of their half, and it's bloody hard attacking out of your own half. So I think they'll have the foot on the throat, and I think they'll be too strong for them.
I think as well, like you spoke about it, as much as he's not a superstar, losing Havili this week, like it just brings in another. Yeah, like I imagine they'll have to.
And Burgess is gone.
Burgess out as well. Like you compound those two. I assume Mawali will come in.
He was 18th man, so you'd
have to assume he comes in. Like just another young, inexperienced guy going up against Fish, Leniu. I just think the pack's going to be too strong for them personally.
And we have to remember they completed like 65%.
It wasn't an impressive game.
No, like that. Like my notes said, this is not finals footy standard.
Yeah.
You then look at that left edge of Penrith. They're going to have William and Kikau going at Lockie Ilias. We've wrapped him, but have fun with that, mate.
Yep.
And then they're going Campbell Graham, a wonderful defensive centre, but the right edge have had their issues this season. Milne there. They're going to have that left edge going at them. I can just see them having a lot of success down there.
Are we talking 13 plus?
If they perform like they did last week, I think 13 pluses could be an understatement.
Wow. Ouch.
I mean, that's not taking anything away from South Sydney. Penrith, they're just so bloody good.
I got a question for you. Let's say Cowboys get bounced out. Rabbitohs make the grand final. Could Demetrio be the coach of the year if they win a GF?
100%.
Timmy?
He could, but, I mean, the Bunnies made a bloody grand final last year.
Yeah, okay.
The Cowboys finished, 15th? I still give it to Todd Payton.
Timmy? Matty?
He could, but the coach of the year is awarded before the grand final.
Oh, okay.
So.
Fair call.
Fuck, he's taken out a lot of context there, though. He replaced Bennett. He lost his halfback. I mean, if he's the only coach that sets out to achieve what every other coach wants to do.
I still think you give it to Toddy Payton. I think that, 15th to fucking prelims.
Honestly, I drove to the Sharks-Cowboys game, and I said to my friend, this game will decide who the coach of the year is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But the reason why I asked the question, I just want to give Demetrio the rap that he deserves. I was not convinced, man. Start of the year, I just wasn't convinced that he could do. I mean, as in, I wasn't convinced that he could break the Bennett curse. Not the Bennett curse, but Bennett tends to leave. Clubs tend to fucking struggle. And he has been the first coach, not essentially, he is the first coach to basically take them to as good, if not as good, one game away with less of a roster and without Wayne Bennett. I think Demetrio deserves a massive, massive rap. And, they haven't dealt with any controversies this year. He's handled. At the start of the year, I thought the media and journos were going to absolutely tear this poor bloke to bits. And yet he's handled it with all aplomb. It's been easy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they haven't had any controversy. He's handled everything that could have been a controversy and just
that's what I mean.
Inflated everything the way. I was as you guys all said, you still give it to Todd Payton, mate. If Demetrio beats Robinson in week 1 in a sudden death, beats Ivan Cleary in the rest at Penrith in week 2, and then manages to win a grand final the year after Wayne Bennett leaves, Todd Payton, an unbelievable season, but I don't know how you couldn't give coach of the year to Demetrio.
What would you, right now, in disregard the grand final, how would you rate the coaches right now? Would you go Payton, Fitzgibbon, Demetrio for the season?
Yeah, it's hard with Fitzgibbon now because his team obviously went out in straight sets and, conceded 35-odd points per game, but I'd probably have it in that order. But I personally think that a lot of these awards and everything, that they should be given out when the season's over. I think it's fucking ridiculous that we award, we name all the best of the best when the season hasn't started. We don't know the end result of the season yet. We don't know who's actually been successful or not. It's bizarre.
Timmy, who would be your
top
3 coaches this year?
I'd go Payton, Fitzgibbon, Demetrio. And there's this other bloke, what's his name, Ivan Cleary. He's done all
I know. And he just like, no one talks about
We're
it.
kind of like, mate, you just, where are you?
Yeah.
You can come in 4th or 5th or something, but it's like, what more can he do?
Well, we spoke about it last week. Like Ivan Cleary's ability to be doing things we've never seen before, but almost be not even thought about as a coach. We thought last week we were talking about, we thought that he's become so smart and savvy with the media. He's intentionally done that because it just takes away pressure from everyone. But you're right. Like for example, Ivan Cleary, we haven't spoken about this and no one's speaking about this. Penrith are going for back-to-back. They're going for back-to-back. And like no one's even talking about it. So right now I would have Peyton number 1, Craig Fitzgibbon number 2, and either Demetrio or Ivan Cleary at 3. Probably Demetrio. But
yeah.
It's unfair on Ivan Cleary because like it's because he's too good almost.
Yeah, seriously.
Like he should probably be even number 1. Like he's lost 3, 4, 5, like 3 or 4 games in 2 years.
To Guru's point though, like if Para win the comp, then Brad Arthur should be thrown in the mix as well.
If they win the comp.
Yeah, I think you're both undervaluing how hard it is to win a fucking comp. Like, I reckon if Demetrio does manage to win it...
We just disagree.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but fuck. How many coaches have won premierships in this competition? Like, if you're one of them, fuck. I reckon it's an incredible effort to do it the year after Wayne Bennett. I reckon that's unbelievable.
Oh, I think it's a big effort. I just think that the 15th to a prelim and maybe a grand final.
It's incredible.
That's just crazy. Like think about how far away like Newcastle, Warriors, Tigers, like that's where the Cowboys were last year. Now they're considered like potentially
They could win a comp.
But yeah, Demetrio deserves massive, massive raps. Now, if the Rabbitohs are to win, where do you see them winning, Guru?
Sorry, if the Cowboys are to win?
No, if the Rabbitohs are to win against the Panthers, where do you see them doing it?
I mean, it'll have to come down to Cody and Latrell. I don't know how this forward pack can match it with the Penrith Panthers, to be honest with you. And I know that the Rabbitohs pack's proven me wrong in the past, and for their sake, I hope they do again. But I just think this Penrith side, their defence is just too strong through the middle. I think Cody and Latrell are going to have proper huge games in this one where they're just able to do those things that no one else in this comp can do, and they are those sort of players. They have got it in them. I look back to last year when I talk about this game a lot, where the Panthers beat the Melbourne Storm in the prelim, and they went down there and just showed them no respect whatsoever. I think the South Sydney Rabbitohs, they need to go at them and turn it into a real dogfight and then try, because I don't think they're going to beat them with just playing consistent footy. Like would it shock you if they completed at 80%, they get beaten by 20 next week?
No, not at all. Like that, just the Panthers are just so bloody good in defence. Their line speed is crazy.
I think Latrell and Cody, it might have to be a little bit dirty to get them off their game, but I think you got to throw something different at Penrith.
What do you reckon, Timmy?
Yeah, they need to throw the kitchen sink at them in attack. Play to your strength. Your strength, South Sydney Rabbitohs, is attack, and it's putting points on. I think if they get in a dogfight and it becomes an arm wrestle through the middle, they're just not going to do it. They're not good enough to beat Penrith that way. They need to just throw a lot of shape at them. Shape around the ruck. Use the footy in your own half, coming out of your own end. Play wide early, and just rattle them. Rattle their cage a little bit. Throw something different that they're not expecting. Yes, it's, the odd fallback is they need to match them in the middle. Of course they do. If they don't match them in the middle, they'll get pumped. But they need to throw something at them that they haven't seen, and their ability is using the football. Use it early. Get Latrell, get his one-on-ones out wide, steaming over the top of blokes, and I can't wait to see what Demetrio's game plan is to go at Penrith, because if they go out and say, we'll arm wrestle you and we'll beat you in a grind, well, I don't think you will.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all kind of feel that way. Like, they're not beating him in an arm wrestle. And
it could go horribly wrong, throwing the kitchen sink over the expanse flow, but you have to do it.
You have to do it. I think things like kicking early, throwing the ball around, getting to edges, everything you can do to upset the rhythm of the Panthers, that's probably what the Rabbitohs are going to have to do. Because if they go out there going, look, let's try and just grind them and beat them by 2 points, I just don't think they've got the troops in the middle to do that.
You're walking into the Panthers.
That's what they want.
That's what they want you to do.
And they nearly won a couple of weeks ago. They had 5 line breaks in the first 20 minutes. Just attacking the edges of the Panthers. And Panthers dominated the middle, and that's how they won. But
Well, the
They
one
got
thing you could say the Rabbitohs have over Panthers is that incredible wide ball playing. Now, you don't want to go too laterally because then you make no meters. The Rabbitohs, I'd argue, probably the best in the comp at those plays. So it's going to be a tough gig. I personally can't see Panthers win, but more than happy to Panthers losing, but more than happy to sit here next week and go, I was totally wrong. The Rabbitohs got the win.
If they do lose, Penrith, fuck, it's going to be a grand final. It's anyone's all of a sudden.
Oh, right. Well, I wonder what happens if Panthers lose. Like, is there pressure, or is it oh well, like we're still fucking killing it. I wonder what. But I just honestly, unfortunately, and it's no disrespect, I just cannot see how the Panthers let this one go. Everything is set up perfectly for them to go back to back. Yep, cannot wait. Anything on, boys?
We got Beers and Break-Evens. It'll be out on YouTube tonight and then on the podcast tomorrow.
Beers and Break-Even. YouTube tonight. It's a Rugby League Guru.
Yep.
And
YouTube, yep.
Anything, Timmy?
All good, mate. Supercoach is done. I've got a little bit of the feed up. I'm just enjoying some finals footy, just waiting around till Monday rocks up for the next Bloke potty.
How good. Living the dream. All right. That is us done and dusted. Grab a case of Bloke in a Bar beer. Dirty Merger podcast shirts dropping next Monday, 6 p.m. Also, live show, the Locker Room Hotel outside of Core Stadium. Grand final day. Be there. And as usual, I'll go and fuck myself. Thank you.